For the next few miles, the forest grew progressively more dangerous as they ventured deeper into the World Tree's territory. The ambient mana concentration had reached levels that could sustain creatures of significantly higher rank than those they had encountered previously. Their first Master Rank encounter came without warning. A massive two-headed hound emerged from the dense undergrowth, each head growling with independent aggression as it sized up the intruders. The beast stood nearly 6 feet tall at the shoulder, its muscular frame covered in dark, majestic fur. Both sets of eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence that marked it as far more dangerous than the Crimson Panther had been. Lola's response was immediate but surprisingly brutal. Rather than dispatching the creature with her usual clean efficiency, she conjured a massive fireball that engulfed the hound completely. But the flames were calibrated to burn slowly rather than kill instantly, creating a prolonged execution rather than a quick death. The beast writhed in its place, both heads shrieking in agony as the magical fire consumed it gradually. The terrible sounds filled the forest for nearly a minute before the hound finally collapsed into a charred corpse. Its suffering ended at last. Noah looked at Lola with raised eyebrows, surprised by the unusual way of killing. So far, she had one shot at all the beasts, killing them almost instantly. Why didn't you kill it outright? That seemed unnecessarily painful. Lola's expression darkened with old memories, her usual playful demeanor temporarily replaced by something colder. I have a very personal vendetta against doghounds specifically. When I was still at Master Rank myself, one of the stronger variants ambushed me during an expedition. It dealt me a terrible injury that nearly killed me and left me recovering for months. She gestured toward the charred remains with obvious distaste. The species is known for its cunning and cruel tactics. They're intelligent enough to set traps and coordinate ambushes, but they lack any honor or mercy when they have an advantage. I've hated them ever since that encounter, and I wanted to relieve some of that lingering resentment. Noah couldn't help but laugh at the vindictive admission, finding humor in seeing this powerful archmage hold such a specific grudge. That poor hound probably had nothing to do with the one that attacked you years ago. You just condemned some random dog to painful death because of family resemblance. Probably, Lola admitted with a slight smile returning to her features. But it made me feel better, and isn't that what matters? I was going to kill it anyway. Remind me never to wrong you in any way, Noah joked as they continued walking. If you hold grudges this long against an entire species, I'd hate to see what you do to someone who actually deserved your anger. You're safe. I could never stay angry at my handsome boss, no matter what you did, Lola assured him with obvious affection and a soft wink. They encountered several more master-level beasts over the next hour as they pressed deeper into the dangerous territory. A serpent that could turn its scales to rock-hard armor fell to Lola's attacks, and various other species. Each threat was eliminated with the casual gesture that demonstrated the vast gulf between master rank and peak archmage capabilities. Noah watched these encounters with growing appreciation for just how powerful Lola had become after her recent breakthrough. Master rank beasts that would challenge most experienced practitioners were nothing more than minor obstacles to her current abilities. Then they encountered something that made Noah pause with genuine interest. A massive tiger emerged from the forest depths. The creature's aura marked it as a middle-stage master rank. The tiger was intelligent. That much was obvious from the fact that it didn't attack right away but simply was ready in position. Thankfully, Lola was hiding her aura, so the tiger was unable to figure out her real rank. Otherwise, it would have fled immediately. Unlike the previous beasts that had attacked immediately, this tiger maintained a cautious distance while evaluating the threats before it. The creature had clearly survived to its current rank by knowing when to fight and when to retreat. Noah stepped forward before Lola could launch an attack, his hand raised to signal his intention. Wait, I want to handle this one myself. Lola turned to look at him with surprise and concern. Noah, that's a middle-stage master rank beast. It's significantly more dangerous than the Crimson Panther you fought earlier. The power gap between middle adept and middle master is enormous. I know, Noah replied calmly, his eyes never leaving the circling tiger. But I need to understand my actual limits against stronger opponents. The panther didn't push me at all. This should provide a better test of what I'm actually capable of. The tiger seemed to sense the shift in dynamics, its flickering form becoming more solid as it prepared for combat. The beast's instincts were warning that this particular prey might be dangerous, but its pride kept it from immediate retreat without knowing the risks. You really do have a talent for finding the most dangerous opponents to test yourself against, Lola observed with obvious worry. At least promise me you'll take this seriously and not treat it like a training exercise. I promise to be careful, Noah assured her, though his slight smile suggested he was actually looking forward to the challenge. But I think my attributes might surprise you when matched against something this powerful. Lola crossed her arms and positioned herself where she could intervene instantly if needed. Fine, but I'm ending this immediately if you're in genuine danger. Your survival is more important than testing your limits. Noah drew his blade and settled into a ready stance, his body language projecting calm confidence despite facing an opponent that should theoretically outclass him by multiple ranks. The tiger's eyes narrowed as it recognized the universal signs of someone preparing for serious combat. The confrontation was about to begin, providing Noah with the opportunity to test whether his abnormally high attributes and balanced skill development could allow him to punch above his official weight class against master rank opposition. Noah began his approach toward the massive tiger with measured steps, his blade sheathed at his side. The beast was considerably larger than the Crimson Panther, standing nearly 7 feet at the shoulder with muscles that rippled beneath striped fur. This was a middle-stage master rank creature, and its physical presence alone was intimidating. Let's start with the basics, Noah thought as he closed the distance between them. The tiger launched forward with explosive power, its massive paw swinging toward Noah's torso with enough force to shatter stone. Noah met the attack directly, catching the limb with his bare hand while his blade remained unused. The impact sent shockwaves through his arm, and he was forced backwards several feet despite his enhanced vitality. Interesting. My raw strength alone isn't quite enough, Noah realized as he shook out his tingling fingers. The tiger possessed the kind of overwhelming physical power that came from being a creature designed purely for combat and hunting. Its body was a weapon honed by evolution and magical enhancement. The tiger pressed its advantage, launching a series of devastating strikes that forced Noah into defensive positions. Each blow carried tremendous weight, and while his durability prevented injury, the force was driving him backwards steadily. His strength attribute simply wasn't sufficient to match this creature's natural advantages. Time to even the playing field. Noah activated his aura skill, channeling mana throughout his entire body in patterns designed to enhance physical capabilities beyond their natural limits. The energy flowed through his muscles, bones, and nervous system, amplifying strength, speed, and reflexes simultaneously. His body began radiating a faint blue glow as the technique took full effect. When the tiger's next strike came, Noah caught it firmly and actually managed to hold his ground without being pushed backwards. The beast's eyes widened with surprise as it realized its physical dominance had suddenly evaporated. Much better. The aura enhancement brings me close to its natural strength level, Noah assessed as he pushed the massive paw aside and delivered a powerful punch to the tiger's shoulder that actually made the creature stumble. This was particularly impressive considering that the tiger was fundamentally a heavy hitter that relied almost entirely on physical attacks rather than elemental manipulation. Its entire combat strategy centered around overwhelming opponents through superior strength and durability. The fact that Noah could match it while being multiple ranks lower spoke to how abnormal his attribute distribution had become from the amount of enhancements that his items had provided. They exchanged blows with increasing intensity, the forest floor cratering beneath their feet from the impact forces involved. Noah's blade carved shallow cuts across the tiger's hide whenever openings appeared, while the beast's claws left scratches on his clothing without penetrating to the flesh beneath. His absurd vitality, combined with aura enhancement, made him nearly as durable as the master-rank tiger despite the gap in their rank. My body can withstand this level of punishment without serious damage. The combination of vitality and aura enhancement is working exactly as I hoped, Noah noted with satisfaction as another heavy blow glanced off his reinforced forearm. The tiger's attacks carried tremendous variety despite its focus on physical combat. It used its weight advantage to attempt pins and crushes, its jaws to deliver armor-piercing bites, and its tail like a blunt weapon to strike from unexpected angles. Noah responded with his swordsmanship, his blade work flowing through defensive patterns, while his free hand delivered strikes powered by his enhanced strength. After several minutes of intense physical combat, Noah decided he had gathered sufficient data about his basic capabilities. Time to test the new technique. This tiger will be the perfect testing dummy. Noah could barely hold in his smile that came from excitement. He created distance with a powerful kick that sent the tiger sliding backwards, then began channeling mana according to the pattern engraved in his mind for striking eagle. The wind element responded to his will, compressing and shaping itself into a construct that gradually took recognizable form. An eagle materialized before him, constructed entirely from swirling compressed wind that gave it a semi-transparent appearance. The creation was approximately 3 feet from beak to tail, its wings spread wide as it hovered with perfect stability. The level of detail was remarkable, individual feathers visible in the flowing air currents that comprised its body. The casting took longer than I'd like, but the construct feels stable, Noah observed as he directed the wind eagle toward his target. The tiger recognized the threat and attempted to dodge, but the eagle tracked its movements like a predator. When the construct finally made contact with the beast's flank, the real display began. The wind eagle detonated upon impact, but rather than simply dispersing, it transformed into something far more devastating. A sphere of rotating wind blades materialized around the tiger, trapping it within a prison of cutting force approximately 10 meters in diameter. The blades varied dramatically in size, from massive crescents as long as a man to microscopic cutting edges invisible to normal vision. They slashed at the trapped tiger from every conceivable angle simultaneously, attacking high and low, from the sides and above, in patterns that made defense impossible. The tiger roared in pain and fury as hundreds of cuts appeared across its body within seconds. It tried to break through the whirlwind prison, launching its considerable mass against the rotating barrier, but the force was too strong. The wind blades simply redirected their momentum back toward the center while continuing their relentless assault. Blood began spraying outward from the countless wounds accumulating on the beast's form. The cuts ranged from shallow scratches caused by the smaller blades to deep gashes where the larger crescents carved through muscle and into bone. The precision was horrifying. Some blades targeted specific vulnerabilities like joints and eyes, while others simply worked to create cumulative damage through overwhelming numbers. The technique is more powerful than I anticipated, Noah thought with a mixture of satisfaction and concern about the brutal effectiveness of his new skill. Lola watched the entire display with her mouth slightly open in shock. She had seen countless combat techniques throughout her long career, but the raw, destructive potential of what Noah had just created was exceptional even by peak Archmage standards. The way the wind prison adapted to the tiger's attempts to escape, constantly adjusting blade positions and rotation speeds to maintain perfect containment, demonstrated a level of elemental control that should have been impossible for someone who had only recently reached adept rank in wind manipulation. That technique could kill master rank practitioners despite Noah's level, Lola realized with growing amazement. The combination of area denial, sustained damage, and crowd control makes it devastatingly effective against single, powerful opponents. The whirlwind prison continued its work for approximately 30 seconds before finally dissipating, the compressed wind returning to normal air currents. The tiger collapsed onto the forest floor, its body covered in so many cuts that its fur appeared more red than its original color. The beast was still breathing but clearly defeated, unable to rise or continue fighting. Noah approached cautiously, his blade ready to deliver a finishing strike if necessary. But the tiger simply lay its head down in submission, recognizing that further resistance would only result in more suffering. The intelligence in its eyes showed acceptance of defeat. Noah turned back toward Lola with a satisfied expression, dismissing the immediate threat before him. The striking eagle technique worked better than I expected for a first attempt, though the casting time definitely needs improvement before I can use it reliably in difficult combat situations. Lola nodded with an approving smile, her earlier shock at the technique's power having settled into appreciation. With dedicated practice, it will become as natural as breathing. The foundation is already solid, you just need repetition to reduce the casting sequence from conscious effort to muscle memory and instinctive channeling. Noah agreed with the assessment before turning his attention back toward the wounded tiger, genuinely unsure what to do with the intelligent creature. Killing it felt wasteful now that it had surrendered, but simply releasing it wasn't an option either. Lola, what is the potential of this species? Noah asked, studying the tiger's powerful frame despite its current injuries. Lola examined the beast more carefully, her extensive knowledge allowing her to assess its bloodline and natural capabilities. If I'm not mistaken, this is a striped tiger variant. Their maximum potential should reach Grandmaster rank if they possess exceptional talent and receive proper resources. However, most specimens typically plateau at Master rank due to limited access to advancement opportunities. Interesting, Noah mused, an idea forming as he considered the possibilities. What do you think about adopting this tiger? Do you think it would provide Leo and us some companionship during our travels? Lola's eyes widened immediately with obvious excitement at the suggestion, her expression brightening considerably. Another kitty? I mean, if you can successfully tame it, then absolutely. Leo would definitely enjoy having another kitty around. Noah smiled at her obvious slip, finding it endearing how she tried to play off her own enthusiasm about having another large feline to dote on. He had noticed her affection for Leo and suspected she would be equally attached to any other powerful creature that joined their group. Walking toward the defeated striped tiger, Noah reached into his storage ring and retrieved a piece of beef jerky. The carrot and stick approach was often the most effective method for establishing relationships with intelligent creatures. Demonstrate overwhelming force, then immediately follow with unexpected kindness and resources. The tiger's eyes tracked the movement warily as Noah approached. Its body tensed despite its injuries in case this was some kind of trick or attack. But when Noah knelt down and offered the premium enhancement item, confusion replaced the defensive posture. Here, Noah said calmly, holding out the beef jerky within easy reach. This will help with your injuries and restore some of your strength. The tiger hesitated for several long moments, clearly torn between hunger, pain, and suspicion about accepting anything from the human who had just defeated it so decisively. Finally, the survival instinct and the enticing smell of the food overcame its wariness. It carefully took the beef jerky from Noah's hand with surprising gentleness, its massive jaws capable of crushing bone instead of closing delicately around the offered item. The tiger consumed the enhancement food quickly, and almost immediately its wounds began closing at visible rates as the item's regenerative properties took effect. As the healing progressed, Noah began speaking directly to the intelligent creature, though he remained uncertain whether it could actually understand human speech or respond in any meaningful way beyond basic body language. "I'm going to be direct with you," Noah said, maintaining eye contact with the tiger to establish the seriousness of the conversation. "You're clearly intelligent enough to recognize when you're outmatched, which suggests you're smarter than most beasts at your rank. I'm offering you a choice here. You can either return to this forest and continue your solitary existence, hunting for survival and constantly facing threats from other powerful beasts. Or you can come with us, receive regular access to enhancement items like what you just consumed, and have the opportunity to advance beyond what you could achieve alone in your lifetime." The tiger's intelligent eyes studied Noah carefully as the beef jerky continued working through its system. The wounds that had covered its body were closing rapidly, deep gashes sealing into pink scars before fading entirely. More importantly, the beast could feel something fundamental changing within itself. The enhancement item wasn't just healing injuries, it was strengthening its very constitution in ways that natural cultivation could never match. "This human possesses resources that could transform my potential entirely," the tiger thought with growing awareness. That single piece of food contained more concentrated energy than weeks of hunting and consuming normal prey. Noah watched the creature process the choices, recognizing the exact moment when calculation replaced the wariness in those intelligent eyes. "I'm not asking you to become a servant or slave. You provide companionship and protection when needed, And in return, you receive access to resources that will help you reach heights your species rarely achieves. The tiger's gaze shifted toward Lola, assessing the other powerful presence nearby. The Archmage's aura alone confirmed that these two operated at levels far beyond normal practitioners. Aligning with such strength made sense from a pure survival perspective. They defeated me easily, but chose mercy when killing would have been simpler. Then they provided healing and enhancement when exploitation would have been expected. These actions suggest honor rather than simple dominance. The beast reasoned inwardly. You'll have freedom to move and act as you choose when we're not facing danger, Noah added, sensing the tiger's internal deliberations. I won't chain you or force obedience through magical compulsion, but I will expect loyalty and cooperation when it matters. Can you accept those terms? The tiger remained silent for several moments longer before finally lowering its head in a gesture of acceptance that transcended language barriers. The movement carried dignity rather than submission, acknowledgement of a reasonable offer rather than surrender to overwhelming force. This arrangement provides advancement opportunities one could never achieve alone. Pride matters less than survival and growth, the tiger concluded, its decision made with the calculation of an intelligent predator recognizing favorable circumstances. Noah smiled and reached out slowly, placing his hand on the tiger's massive head in a gesture of acceptance and greeting. The beast tensed momentarily before relaxing into the contact, recognizing it as confirmation of their new relationship rather than a threat. Good. Welcome to our group, Noah said warmly. We'll need to figure out a proper name for you eventually. Lola approached now that the situation had clearly resolved peacefully, her expression showing satisfaction at the successful recruitment. Do you want to establish a blood pact with it? That would ensure absolute loyalty and create a magical bond that prevents betrayal. Noah immediately shook his head, his expression becoming more serious. No, the tiger has been defeated by me fairly, and it will stay in the shop with us based on that understanding and the mutual benefits we discussed. I don't want to earn its loyalty through magical compulsion or forced binding. He looked down at the tiger, which watched the conversation with obvious interest. The tiger doesn't seem unreasonable from what I've observed. It understood when it was beaten, accepted mercy gracefully, and made a smart decision to join us rather than being forced. By spending time together and building genuine trust, it will naturally become part of our family without needing artificial bonds. Lola considered his reasoning for a moment before raising a practical concern. What if it attacks you or Leo when you're vulnerable? Blood pacts exist specifically to prevent that kind of betrayal. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Everyone knows of blood pacts, and it's a normal thing. Noah laughed at the suggestion, his confidence evident in his casual dismissal of the threat. In front of you, you're present in the shop almost constantly. If this tiger somehow proves stupid enough to attack either of us despite everything we've discussed, then you can deal with it appropriately. The implicit threat was clear. Betrayal would result in immediate and permanent consequences from an opponent the tiger had no chance of defeating. The arrangement relied on mutual self-interest rather than magical enforcement, which Noah found far more appealing in this scenario. Lola laughed as well, recognizing the logic even if she remained slightly more cautious about trusting a beast so quickly. Fair enough. I suppose having another large cat to watch over does sound enjoyable. Though I'm going to need more premium items if we're feeding 2 kitties regularly. After the tiger accepted Noah's offer, he looked down at the massive creature with a practical consideration. We should probably give you a proper name. What would you like to be called? The tiger simply stared back at him with those intelligent eyes, its expression suggesting complete uncertainty about the concept of choosing its own name. The beast had likely never been called anything beyond simple territorial designations or threats from other creatures. Lola stepped forward with an enthusiastic smile, clearly having given this some thought already. How about Yuki? It's a famous delicacy in the Demon Kingdom, and with those beautiful white stripes against the darker fur, it seems fitting. Noah frowned slightly, processing the suggestion before raising an obvious concern. Wait. That sounds like a girl's name, though, doesn't it? Lola rolled her eyes in exasperation. her expression suggesting she was dealing with someone incredibly dense. Of course it is. The tiger before you is female. How did you not notice that? Wait, really? Noah looked back at the tiger with genuine surprise, clearly having completely missed what should have been obvious physical indicators. His lack of knowledge about animal species and biological markers was showing dramatically. Lola laughed at his obliviousness, finding his confusion endearing despite its absurdity. Yes, really. I'm honestly amazed you went through that entire fight and negotiation without realizing. Did you think all tigers just looked like that? Noah felt slightly embarrassed by his oversight but tried to move past it smoothly. Well, Yuki, it is then. Welcome to the family properly. The newly named Yuki seemed to accept the designation without complaint, her tail swishing slightly in what might have been satisfaction or simply acknowledgement. Noah's expression became more serious as he considered their immediate situation. Yuki, we need to be honest with you about something. We're currently on a dangerous mission to reach a location deeper in this territory. It's going to involve significant combat and unknown threats that could prove lethal even with our combined strength. He paused to ensure the tiger was paying attention to the important information. I don't want to bring you into that level of danger immediately after you've just agreed to join us and while you're still recovering from our fight. So we're going to continue toward our destination now, and we'll come back to pick you up once we've completed our objective and confirmed it's safe. Yuki nodded her massive head in understanding, showing the remarkable intelligence that had convinced Noah she was worth recruiting in the first place. The tiger recognized the wisdom in not rushing into unknown danger before establishing proper coordination with her new companions. Before departing deeper into her territory, Yuki approached both Noah and Lola, rubbing her enormous head against their hands in a gesture of affection that seemed almost domestic despite coming from a master-rank magical beast. The warmth in the action suggested genuine appreciation for the mercy and opportunity she had been given. Noah scratched behind Yuki's ears gently, surprised by how soft the fur felt despite its obvious durability. We'll be back for you soon. Stay safe and recover your full strength. Lola also gave the tiger an affectionate pat, clearly already attached to their newest companion. Take care of yourself, Yuki. We'll have more enhancement items for you when we return. Yuki made a sound that might have been agreement or farewell before turning and padding away into the deeper forest, her powerful form disappearing into the shadows of her territory. Despite the recent defeat, she moved with renewed confidence, as if the encounter had somehow increased her status rather than diminished it. Noah and Lola watched her depart before resuming their own journey toward the World Tree's coordinates, now traveling as a duo once more, but with the knowledge that their group would soon expand to include another powerful companion. Noah and Lola ventured deeper into the forest, the ambient mana growing so dense that he could practically breathe mana more than air. The very air seemed to shimmer with concentrated magical energy. The trees had grown to truly massive proportions, their trunks wider than before. The forest floor was carpeted with luminescent fungi that provided eerie blue-green illumination, while floating wisps of pure mana drifted through the air like ghostly fireflies. The ecosystem had transformed into something alien, far removed from the relatively normal wilderness they had traversed earlier. The mana concentration here is extraordinary, Lola observed quietly, her archmage-level senses allowing her to perceive the intricate patterns of energy flowing through the environment. We must be getting close to the World Tree's immediate territory. Only something of immense power could sustain this level of ambient magical saturation. Noah nodded his agreement, though he was more focused on the increasingly oppressive sense of danger emanating from deeper in the forest. His instincts were screaming warnings about threats that existed on entirely different scales from what they had encountered previously. The scenery began shifting dramatically as they progressed. The luminescent fungi gave way to rock formations that grew from the earth. Streams of water flowed through channels carved into ancient stone, creating an otherworldly landscape that seemed more magical construct than natural environment. Then they felt it, an aura so overwhelming that it stopped both of them in their tracks. The presence emanated from somewhere ahead, radiating power that dwarfed everything they had encountered so far. The sheer magnitude of the aura made the master rank beasts they had fought earlier seem like children by comparison. This was something operating on a different level of strength. Grandmaster rank, Noah realized with absolute certainty, his enhanced perception allowing him to sense the qualitative difference between this presence and anything else in the forest. After having met so many grandmasters and watched many more die in the battle between the elves, Noah was fairly experienced in judging a grandmaster's strength. A massive creature emerged from behind a cluster of rock formations, and Noah's breath caught at the sight of it. The beast was enormous, easily 15 feet tall at its humped back, with a body covered in grayish-purple hide. Its form was both large and terrifying, suggesting a lineage that predated most magical species he had met thus far. The Graphorn walked on 4 massive feet, each one ending in 4 elongated thumbs tipped with claws that could rend steel like paper. But its most distinctive features were the 2 extraordinarily long, sharp horns that extended from its head like lances. The horns glowed with internal power, suggesting they served as both weapons and conduits for the creature's considerable magical abilities. The beast's eyes fixed on them with intelligence that made even Yuki's awareness seem weaker by comparison. This was a creature that had survived to Grandmaster rank through countless battles, possessing both overwhelming power and the cunning to use it effectively. The difference in aura was absolutely clear to Noah's senses. Where master rank beasts felt like dangerous opponents that required caution and strategy, this Grandmaster rank Graphorn felt like a natural disaster given physical form. Its mere presence seemed to warp the environment, small stones lifting slightly from the ground due to the intensity of its magical field. I would die for certain if I tried to fight this thing, Noah concluded with complete conviction. His confidence from the earlier victories evaporated entirely in the face of this overwhelming threat. The gap between Adept rank and Grandmaster rank was too vast to bridge through attributes alone. Lola glanced at Noah with a slight smile, clearly sensing his reaction to the Graphorn's presence. So, feeling brave enough to test yourself against a Grandmaster-ranked opponent? You handled Yuki quite well earlier. Noah let out a laugh that carried genuine nervousness rather than his usual confidence. I'm leaving this fight entirely to you. I know my limits, and they stop well before suicidal overconfidence against something that could kill me with ease. The Graphorn began moving toward them with deliberate steps, each footfall creating small tremors in the earth. Its aggressive nature was evident in every aspect of its posture and movement. This was not a creature that would allow trespassers in its territory without violent response. Lola's expression became more serious as she stepped forward, positioning herself between Noah and the approaching threat. Stay back and observe carefully. I'm not going to kill it outright. Instead, I want to show you how to properly deal with Grandmaster rank beasts when you eventually reach sufficient strength to face them yourself. Noah retreated to a safe distance, grateful for Lola's protection, while also genuinely curious about witnessing the confrontation between Lola and the beast. This would provide invaluable insight into the kind of power he was working toward through his own advancement. Watch closely, Lola called back to him. Grandmaster beasts are fundamentally different from anything you've fought so far. Their regeneration capabilities, mana reserves, and skill complexity operate on entirely different scales. Noah nodded in agreement as he stared at the beast before them. The Graphorn charged forward with devastating speed, its massive bulk moving far faster than something so large should be capable of achieving. The ground erupted beneath its feet as it accelerated, horns lowered in a technique designed to impale and destroy anything in its path. Lola remained motionless until the last possible moment before casually stepping aside, the Graphorn's charge missing her by mere inches. The beast's momentum carried it past her position, its horns leaving deep gouges in the earth where she had been standing. Notice the speed, Lola commented calmly, as if discussing something educational rather than dodging a lethal attack. Grandmaster rank creatures can move with velocity that matches or exceeds peak master rank practitioners despite their size disadvantages. Never assume bulk means slowness at this level. The Graphorn wheeled around with surprising agility, its 4-thumbed feet providing exceptional traction despite the unfavorable ground conditions. It bellowed with rage at missing its initial attack, the sound carrying enough force to physically vibrate Noah's chest even from his distant position. Then the beast demonstrated why it had achieved Grandmaster rank. Its horns began glowing with intensifying purple light as it channeled mana through them, transforming the physical weapons into conduits for devastating magical techniques. Bolts of concentrated energy launched from the horn tips, each one carrying enough power to vaporize the master rank beasts Noah had fought earlier. Lola deflected the energy bolts with conjured barriers of compressed mana, the impacts creating thunderous explosions that lit up the forest. Observe how it combines physical and magical attacks seamlessly. Grandmaster beasts have integrated their magical abilities into instinctive combat patterns rather than treating them as separate techniques. The Graphorn charged again, but this time it feinted, using its momentum to suddenly pivot and swing its massive head sideways. The horn swept through the space where Lola had begun dodging, forcing her to move seriously rather than simply sidestep to avoid the redirected attack. Good tactical awareness, Lola acknowledged with apparent respect for the beast's intelligence. It's adapting to my movement patterns after just 2 exchanges. This level of combat learning is what separates Grandmaster creatures from their lesser counterparts. She finally went on the offensive, conjuring a massive ball of fire that shot toward the Graphorn's exposed flank. The fireball moved with speeds that made Noah's wind blades look sluggish, crossing the distance in a fraction of a second. The fireball impacted the Graphorn's hide with tremendous force, fire spreading several inches before the beast's natural defenses stopped its progress. Purple blood began flowing from the wound, but even as Noah watched, the injury started closing at visible rates. Watch the regeneration carefully, Lola instructed, her voice carrying over the sound of ongoing combat. Grandmaster rank vitality allows them to heal from injuries that would be permanently crippling to master rank creatures. You need to either kill them outright or inflict damage faster than they can regenerate. Noah once again nodded with shock. Grandmaster rank was truly a goal to reach. He felt like once he reached the Grandmaster rank, he would be practically invincible on Earth, and that felt really good. The Graphorn roared in pain and fury, its regeneration already working to seal the wound Lola had inflicted. But the Archmage wasn't giving it time to recover. She began her assault, demonstrating the overwhelming power gap between peak Archmage and Grandmaster rank beast. Multiple fireballs manifested simultaneously around her position, forming a coordinated barrage that showcased her mastery over the fire element. This is the advantage of peak Archmage rank, Lola called out as the attacks launched toward the Graphorn. The ability to channel multiple complex techniques simultaneously without losing precision or power in any of them. The Graphorn attempted to dodge, its considerable speed allowing it to avoid several of the incoming attacks. But Lola had predicted its movement, positioning each elemental strike to cover every possible escape route. The fireballs caught its legs, humped back, and detonated against its face. The beast bellowed in agony as the combined assault tore through its natural defenses. It's impressive that regeneration struggled to keep pace with the sheer volume of damage being inflicted simultaneously across multiple areas of its body. The Graphorn channeled more mana through its horns, attempting to mount a counterattack. Purple energy gathered at the horn tips, building toward what was clearly a devastating technique capable of matching Lola's barrage. The Graphorn launched multiple energy bolts simultaneously while charging forward, combining ranged attacks with its devastating physical assault in a coordinated technique that demonstrated true Grandmaster-level combat sophistication. Lola responded by creating a wall of flames between herself and the incoming attacks. But this wasn't a simple barrier. The firewall moved, flowing forward like a living wave that consumed the energy bolts before they could reach her. The purple mana dissolved into the flames, absorbed and neutralized by the superior power behind Lola's magic. The Graphorn charged directly into the wall of fire, either too enraged to care or believing its natural defenses would protect it from the heat that proved to be a catastrophic miscalculation. Lola's flames intensified dramatically the moment the beast made contact, transforming from white to an almost blue color. The Graphorn's agonized roar shook the entire forest as it realized its mistake too late. "This is the critical lesson," Lola said. her voice carrying no satisfaction at the creature's suffering. Grandmaster rank opponents require overwhelming force applied with precision. Half measures just waste energy and give them opportunities to adapt or counterattack. She clenched her fist, and the flames surrounding the graphorn compressed inward like a closing vice. The beast thrashed desperately, its massive strength allowing it to break free momentarily, but Lola simply conjured more fire to replace what it had disrupted. The graphorn's regeneration was working frantically, trying to repair the extensive thermal damage, but the continuous application of extreme heat prevented any meaningful recovery. Its hide was blackening and cracking, the wounds spreading faster than its vitality could compensate. Noah watched with a mixture of awe and concern at the brutal power of Lola's combat style. She wasn't toying with the beast or dragging out the fight for too long. She was dismantling a Grandmaster rank threat through superior power and use of her specialized element. Lola created another massive fireball, this one easily 5 feet in diameter and radiating heat that made the crystalline formations around them begin melting. The finishing technique requires concentrating maximum power into a single decisive strike. Watch how I compress the fire energy to its absolute limit before release. The fireball compressed down to barely 3 feet in diameter, but its color shifted to an almost invisible ultraviolet that suggested temperatures beyond what most materials could withstand. The sheer concentration of power made the air itself ignite in small pockets around the compressed sphere. She launched the attack directly at the graphorn's center mass. The beast tried desperately to dodge or defend, but its injuries had slowed its movements just enough to make evasion impossible. The compressed fireball struck true, detonating with such force that the shockwave knocked Noah backwards despite his considerable distance from the impact point. When the flames finally cleared, the graphorn lay motionless on the scorched earth, its body covered in severe burns that even Grandmaster regeneration couldn't overcome quickly enough. The beast was still breathing, but barely, its consciousness fading as its body focused all available resources on simply staying alive. Lola approached the fallen creature calmly, her expression showing respect rather than triumph. It fought well and demonstrated why Grandmaster rank beasts command such fear and respect. But ultimately, the gap between Grandmaster and Peak Archmage is similar to the gap between Master and Grandmaster. She looked back at Noah, her demonstration complete. When you eventually reach sufficient strength to face opponents at this level, remember what you witnessed here. Despite being much stronger than the graphorn, I didn't rely on my raw power alone. Once you start relying solely on your strength for everything, you will stop using your brain to create proper strategies and tactics. This approach will only come back to bite you when you inevitably face something much more powerful than yourself. I've seen countless talented demons fall because they became too confident in their attributes and forgot that intelligence and adaptability often matter more than pure power. The moment you stop thinking critically about combat is the moment you've already lost to someone smarter. Noah nodded seriously, absorbing the valuable lesson about maintaining tactical thinking regardless of power levels. But after a moment, his expression changed to something more playful. That's very profound wisdom from someone who just spent 5 minutes setting a giant magical beast on fire while casually narrating the entire process like it was a cooking demonstration. Noah teased with a grin. Lola rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress her smile at his irreverent summary of her carefully considered combat demonstration. I was using fire to counter its regeneration capabilities. That's completely different from just hitting things with bigger explosions. I could have killed it with one of my more powerful techniques, but that would have taken a toll on my mana reserves, which I found counterproductive. Of course, Noah agreed with obviously exaggerated seriousness. The fact that every single one of your strategic decisions involved setting something on fire with progressively hotter flames is purely coincidental. Very subtle. The graphorn probably never saw it coming. You're impossible, Lola laughed, shaking her head at his teasing. I try to provide valuable combat instruction, and this is the gratitude I receive? I'm very grateful, Noah assured her with a warm smile. Though I'm starting to think your advice essentially boils down to, when in doubt, add more fire until the problem stops moving. Which, to be fair, does seem remarkably effective based on the smoldering crater behind you. With the Graphorn's smoking corpse left behind, Noah and Lola continued deeper into the increasingly mystical forest. The formations grew larger and more elaborate, while streams of pure liquid mana carved glowing pathways through the landscape. They had been walking for perhaps 20 minutes when they both simultaneously sensed two more powerful auras ahead. The signatures marked them clearly as Grandmaster rank, similar in intensity to the Graphorn they had just defeated. But these presences weren't moving aggressively or patrolling territory. They were stationary and occupied. Noah and Lola rounded a massive crystal outcropping and froze at the scene before them. Two magnificent creatures, appearing to be some kind of evolved wolves with silver and gold fur, respectively, were engaged in what could only be described as extremely intimate behavior. The wolves were clearly a mated pair, and they had chosen this secluded grove for private activities. An awkward silence stretched for several painful seconds as both parties processed the unexpected encounter. "Oh," Lola said weakly, her usual confidence completely absent as her face flushed with embarrassment. We didn't mean to. This is very inappropriate timing on our part." Noah felt his own face heating up as he tried to look literally anywhere except at the scene before them. "We're just passing through. Very sorry for the intrusion. We'll just go around somewhere else." He began backing away slowly, gesturing for Lola to do the same. But the damage was already done. Both celestial wolves had separated and were now staring at the two humans with expressions that somehow managed to convey mortification, fury, and murderous intent simultaneously. Their embarrassment at being caught in such a vulnerable moment was rapidly transforming into aggressive hostility. The silver wolf growled low in its throat, the sound carrying enough magical resonance to make the air vibrate. The gold wolf's hackles rose as its aura flared with barely contained rage. Being discovered in such an intimate situation had clearly humiliated them both beyond any possibility of peaceful resolution. "We really don't want to fight," Lola said quickly, raising her hands in a placating gesture. "This was an honest mistake. We're just travelers trying to reach the World Tree. If you'll let us pass peacefully, we'll pretend this encounter never happened." Noah nodded vigorously in agreement. "Absolutely. Complete discretion guaranteed. We saw nothing worth remembering or mentioning to anyone ever." But the wolves were clearly too embarrassed and angry to accept any diplomatic solution. Their auras intensified as they prepared to attack, apparently deciding that eliminating the witnesses to their private moment was preferable to letting them leave with such compromising knowledge. "I think they're too mortified to let us just walk away," Noah observed with resignation as both wolves began circling into attack positions. Nothing quite like catching a Grandmaster rank couple in the act to guarantee a fight you specifically wanted to avoid. Lola sighed deeply, her expression showing genuine regret at the situation. "This is possibly the most awkward way I've ever been forced into combat. Can we at least agree to make this quick and try not to cause them more humiliation than absolutely necessary?" The celestial wolves attacked simultaneously, their coordinated assault demonstrating both their combat prowess and their intimate familiarity with each other's fighting styles. The wolves attacked simultaneously with devastating coordination, their movements flowing together like a perfectly choreographed dance. The silver wolf launched forward with blinding speed, while the gold wolf circled to flank, creating a pincer attack that would have overwhelmed most opponents through sheer sophistication. Lola deflected the silver wolf's initial strike with a hastily conjured fire barrier, but the force behind the attack sent shockwaves through her defensive magic that suggested significantly more power than the Graphorn had possessed. The gold wolf's follow-up assault from the side forced her to teleport rather than simply dodge, the creature's jaws snapping closed on empty air where she had been standing. "These aren't ordinary Grandmaster rank beasts," Lola realized immediately as she reassessed the level of attacks thrown at her. "Their power output is at least double what that Graphorn demonstrated." She created distance with a burst of flames that separated her from both attackers, giving herself precious seconds to analyze the situation properly. The wolves regrouped instantly, their coordination suggesting decades of fighting together as a bonded pair. "Noah, move much further back," Lola called out urgently, her tone filled with concern rather than simple caution. These creatures are at high Grandmaster rank, probably approaching the threshold to peak. Their combined power make them exponentially more dangerous than fighting them individually would suggest. Noah immediately complied, retreating several hundred meters until he was well beyond any possible collateral damage range. He had learned enough about magical combat to recognize when his presence would be a liability rather than assistance. The silver wolf conjured blades of moonlight-like energy that shot toward Lola with speeds that approached her own attack velocities. The gold wolf simultaneously generated spheres of solar plasma that tracked her movements with intelligence. The combination of lunar and solar elemental attacks created a devastating synergy that exploited natural magical resonances. Lola incinerated the moonlight blades with concentrated fire while deflecting the plasma spheres through careful manipulation of thermal currents. But she could feel the strain of defending against two high Grandmaster opponents simultaneously, their coordinated elemental attacks forcing her to spend mana at unsustainable rates. I can win this through attrition if necessary, but it would require extended combat that might compromise our timeline for reaching the World Tree. Lola calculated rapidly. Better to end this decisively before they can fully release their most powerful techniques. The wolves charged together, their movements perfectly synchronized as they wove around with fluid grace. The silver wolf's body began radiating an aura of moonlight that created visual afterimages, making its true position difficult to track. The gold wolf's form blazed with solar radiance that made direct observation painful, creating a complementary illusion effect. Lola conjured a massive wall of flames to block their approach, but both wolves simply leaped through the barrier with protective auras that deflected the worst of the heat. Their resistance to her primary element was impressive, suggesting they had encountered fire-specialized opponents before and developed countermeasures. Their defensive capabilities are more developed than I anticipated. Standard techniques won't be sufficient for a quick victory, Lola acknowledged as she barely avoided a dual strike that would have caught her between both wolves' attacks. She needed additional power to end this fight decisively before the wolves' coordination and elemental synergies created an opening she couldn't defend against. Her eyes found Noah's distant figure, and she made a quick decision based on the resources she knew he possessed. A temporary power-up should do the job. Without hesitation, Lola took out a fruit smoothie from her storage ring. Then, unsealed it with a gesture and consumed the contents in seconds, feeling the familiar surge of attributes flowing through her system. The luxury fruit smoothie provided massive temporary boosts to all attributes, but most importantly for this situation, it dramatically increased her magical power output and mana regeneration for a limited duration. The enhancement transformed her from merely superior to absolutely overwhelming in the power dynamic. The wolves sensed the change immediately, their instincts warning them that their opponent had just become significantly more dangerous. They attempted to press their advantage before the enhancement could take full effect, launching their most powerful coordinated technique. The silver wolf howled, and the sound carried magical resonance that manifested as waves of solidified moonlight that cut through space like invisible blades. The gold wolf roared in harmony, and solar flames erupted across the battlefield in patterns that perfectly complemented the lunar attacks. The combined assault was genuinely impressive, demonstrating why mated pairs of high Grandmaster beasts were considered threats that even multiple peak practitioners struggled to handle. The elemental synergy created effects that exceeded what either wolf could achieve individually. But Lola's temporary boost allowed her to respond with overwhelming force that simply overpowered their coordination through superior magnitude. She conjured flames that burned with intensity beyond anything she had demonstrated during the Graphorn fight, the temperature reaching levels that made the surrounding rocks melt. The moonlight blades dissolved before reaching her, unable to maintain cohesion against the extreme thermal energy radiating from her position. The solar flames were absorbed and redirected, their power insufficient to match her enhanced output even with their natural elemental advantage. "I respect your partnership and your strength," Lola called out to the wolves, her voice carrying genuine admiration despite the ongoing combat. "But this needs to end now." She created a massive sphere of compressed fire above her position, similar to the technique she had used to finish the Graphorn, but scaled up dramatically thanks to the smoothie's enhancement. The temperature was so extreme that it created a vacuum effect, air rushing toward the sphere as it consumed oxygen and converted it to plasma. Both wolves recognized the threat and attempted to flee, their survival instincts finally overriding their embarrassment and anger. But Lola had anticipated the response, creating walls of fire that channeled their movement options while herding them toward specific positions. The silver wolf tried to phase through the barriers using moonlight manipulation, but Lola's enhanced flames burned through its defensive aura with contemptuous ease. The gold wolf attempted to counter with solar energy, but the power differential was too vast for elemental advantage to compensate. Lola released the compressed fire sphere, but rather than allowing it to explode catastrophically, she split it into two precisely controlled streams that pursued each wolf independently. The flames moved with intelligence, tracking their targets through evasive maneuvers and defensive techniques. When the fire streams made contact, they didn't incinerate the wolves outright. Instead, Lola demonstrated the precise control that separated peak practitioners from those with merely overwhelming power. The flames wrapped around both creatures like living chains, restraining their movement while applying just enough heat to cause pain without fatal injury. The wolves struggled desperately, their combined strength actually impressive even while restrained. But Lola simply poured more mana into the binding flames, tightening the restraints until both creatures finally ceased resistance and lowered their heads in submission. "I'm going to release you now," Lola said calmly, maintaining the flame bindings while speaking. "We genuinely didn't intend to intrude on your privacy, and we have no interest in causing you further harm or embarrassment. Will you allow us to pass peacefully, or must I kill you and continue our journey?" The gold wolf made a sound that might have been agreement or simply acknowledgement of defeat. The silver wolf's posture showed similar acceptance, its earlier fury having transformed into resigned tolerance of the situation. Lola gradually dismissed the flame restraints, ready to reimpose them instantly if either wolf showed renewed aggression. But both creatures simply moved away from each other and from Lola, their body language suggesting they wanted nothing more than for this entire embarrassing encounter to be forgotten as quickly as possible. "Thank you for your understanding," Lola said respectfully as she backed away, gesturing for Noah to rejoin her now that the immediate threat had passed. The wolves watched them depart without pursuit, apparently deciding that their dignity had suffered enough damage for one day without prolonging the interaction further. As they walked away, Noah's expression showing curiosity about her decision to spare them. "Why didn't you kill them? They were clearly powerful threats, and leaving high Grandmaster rank beasts alive in our path could create problems on our return journey." Lola's expression softened as she considered the question. "I felt genuinely bad for intruding on them like that. They weren't hunting or acting aggressively until we stumbled into their private moment. That embarrassment and desire to protect their dignity was completely understandable and provided sufficient reason for their hostile reaction." She paused. Then her expression shifted to something more playful as a teasing smile formed. "Besides, if someone suddenly entered during my intimate time with Yo, I would surely have that exact same reaction. Probably worse, actually." Noah's eyes widened in shock at what he thought he heard, his facial expression breaking completely. "With who? Who what? I don't know what you're talking about," Lola replied with obviously exaggerated innocence, her ruby eyes sparkling with mischief as she turned away and continued walking toward their destination. She giggled at his reaction, clearly enjoying how she was able to throw him off balance with her words. The playful tension between them had become a comfortable pattern, though her teasing carried tones that suggested desire beneath the humor. Noah followed behind, still processing her comment and unsure whether she was simply joking or hinting at something more serious. The ambiguity was probably intentional, he realized, recognizing Lola's talent for keeping him uncertain about where playful banter ended and genuine flirtation began. Noah and Lola continued their journey through the increasingly surreal forest, the ambient mana now so concentrated that it felt like walking through liquid magic. Every breath seemed to carry tangible energy that resonated with their internal cultivation, creating a sensation that was both exhilarating and slightly overwhelming. The rocks had grown to truly massive proportions, including the grass and various other plants. "Are you excited?" Lola asked with genuine curiosity, glancing at Noah as they navigated between the towering structures. "Of course," Noah replied honestly, his eyes tracking the increasingly spectacular scenery. "This is unlike anything I've experienced before. The sheer concentration of magical energy here makes Esta's capital feel almost mundane by comparison." The transformation of the environment continued as they progressed. Bioluminescent plants grew in impossible configurations, their roots suspended in midair as they drew sustenance directly from the ambient mana rather than requiring soil or water. An hour passed in relative silence as both practitioners focused on maintaining awareness of potential threats while marveling at the otherworldly landscape. The mana concentration had reached levels that Noah felt would make training here immensely productive, each breath seeming to slightly strengthen his internal cultivation without conscious effort. Lola appeared to be experiencing similar effects, although nowhere near as much as Noah. Due to her peak archmage capabilities, she absorbed the ambient energy and integrated it into her existing power base. The environment was so saturated with mana that simply existing here provided passive cultivation benefits. They finally arrived within the immediate vicinity of their destination, and the change was immediately apparent. The mana density had reached levels that felt almost oppressive, creating pressure against their magical senses that suggested something of immense power existed nearby. Noah paused to process the overwhelming energy signature, his mind working through the implications. Why couldn't others find the world tree if it was broadcasting this much magical power? Anyone at adept rank or higher would immediately recognize that something extraordinary exists here. The mana concentration alone should have drawn practitioners from across the kingdoms. Lola smiled at the logical question, having anticipated his confusion about the apparent accessibility. This extreme mana saturation is actually a temporary effect of the world tree when it's about to bear the teardrop, which contains an absolutely immense amount of concentrated life energy. The tree draws power from the surrounding environment and focuses it in preparation for creating something that represents the pinnacle of natural magical creation. She gestured at the glowing landscape around them. All of this excess mana, the growth, the impossible plant life, these are side effects of the world tree gathering energy for fruit formation. It's like watching a star prepare to give birth. Noah nodded in understanding, the explanation resolving his confusion about the strategic situation. So it's only during this specific event period that the location becomes so obvious. Usually the tree remains dormant and hidden, with mana levels that blend into the background magical noise of the forest. "Exactly," Lola confirmed, pleased with his quick comprehension. Under normal circumstances, the world tree exists in a state of minimal activity that makes it nearly impossible to locate without specific knowledge of its position. The ambient mana remains at ordinary forest levels, and the tree itself employs natural camouflage that defeats most detection methods. She continued explaining as they walked. But when the conditions align for teardrop formation, which happens perhaps once every few decades, the tree must gather enormous amounts of power over several weeks. During that preparation period, the location becomes increasingly obvious to anyone nearby with magical sensitivity. That's why both elven kingdoms never gave up in locating it, Noah realized. As for the prince, his team must have loosely ventured here, detected the energy buildup and recognized what it meant. Precisely. The timing of your arrival in this place and the world tree's fruiting cycle creating this opportunity represents remarkable coincidence. Or perhaps fate, depending on your perspective. Lola began scanning the area systematically, her archmage-level perception allowing her to trace the complex patterns of mana flow back toward their source. The energy streams all converged toward a single point somewhere ahead, creating a focal point that should mark the tree's actual location. After searching for several minutes, moving between trees and following the strongest mana currents, she finally identified the source of the overwhelming magical signature. There it is. Lola pointed with a huge grin, her excitement evident in both her expression and her voice. Noah followed her gesture and felt his breath catch at the sight before them. Even from a distance, the world tree's presence was unmistakable and awe-inspiring in ways that transcended simple visual observation. The tree wasn't huge compared to other trees next to it. Although objectively it was large, its trunk easily tens of meters in diameter at the base. What truly captured attention was the light. The entire tree glowed with internal radiance that pulsed in slow, steady rhythms like a visible heartbeat. Each pulse sent waves of mana rippling outward through the environment, the source of all the ambient energy that saturated this entire region. Near the top of the visible trunk, perhaps 20 meters above the ground, a single fruit hung from a branch that seemed to defy gravity. Even from this distance, Noah could see that the teardrop-shaped object glowed with concentrated power that made everything else in the forest seem dim by comparison. "That's what we came for," Lola said quietly, her voice carrying reverence for the natural wonder before them. The world tree's teardrop, one of the most powerful natural magical artifacts that can exist in any world. Noah nodded as he stared at the teardrop fruit, even from this considerable distance recognizing the immense power concentrated within that single glowing object. The way it pulsed with internal light suggested it contained more raw magical energy than most grandmasters would accumulate in their entire lifetimes. "We need to get closer," Noah said urgently, realizing their current position was too far away to properly assess the situation or make any concrete plans. "We can't see the details from here, and we need to understand what kind of defenses or challenges we might face." Lola agreed with the assessment, and they began moving carefully through the landscape toward the massive tree. The mana concentration increased with each step, creating pressure that would have been uncomfortable for anyone below adept rank. Within minutes, they had closed the distance significantly, reaching approximately 200 meters from the world tree's base. Then something stopped them in their tracks. 5 distinct presences radiated power from positions surrounding the tree, each one carrying the unmistakable signature of Grandmaster rank. The beasts had positioned themselves strategically around the world tree's perimeter, apparently claiming territory or standing guard over the precious fruit. Their eyes immediately converged on Noah and Lola as the new arrivals entered their territory. The attention made Noah feel uneasy, as he felt multiple predatory gazes assessing their threat levels and intentions simultaneously. Noah quickly identified the 5 competitors. A magnificent fox with 2 tails that shimmered with silver light stood to the east. An enormous turtle with a shell that appeared to be carved from jade occupied the southern position. What seemed to be a massive ethereal cat with translucent fur watched from the west. A colossal bear with fur that crackled with earth element energy held the northern approach. A vibrant parrot with rainbow plumage observed everything with intelligent eyes. Then, to Noah's absolute shock, the fox spoke with a voice that carried feminine amusement. Well, what interesting specimens have wandered into our little gathering?" The 9-tailed fox purred, her tone suggesting she already knew more about him than comfortable. An archmage succubus and her curious companion. How delightfully unexpected. I wonder what secrets they're hiding that would make them bold enough to approach the world tree during fruiting season. The turtle's voice rumbled forth next, ancient and patient. All things arrive in their proper time. These newcomers are simply following the natural order, drawn by power as all creatures are. There is no need for hasty judgment or premature conflict. Let us observe and understand before acting. The ethereal cat's contribution was dismissive and aloof, as if the entire situation barely warranted her attention. More competition for the teardrop. How tedious. They'll either prove worthy or they won't. I care little either way, so long as they don't interfere with my own intentions when the fruit finally ripens. The massive bear growled aggressively, his voice carrying obvious threat and territorial dominance. More thieves come to steal what rightfully belongs to the strongest. I should crush them now before they become problems. Weak creatures have no place near the world tree. The parrot immediately repeated the bear's words in a perfect mimicry. Crush them now before they become problems. Weak creatures have no place near the world tree. Then the bird burst into raucous laughter that echoed across the clearing. The bear's head whipped toward the parrot with murderous fury. Mock me again, feathered pest, and I'll tear you from that branch and use your bones as toothpicks. The parrot laughed even harder but notably didn't repeat the threat this time, apparently recognizing the limit of what the bear would tolerate. The bird's eyes sparkled with mischief that suggested this was far from the first time it had deliberately provoked the aggressive bear. Noah and Lola exchanged glances, both recognizing the extraordinary nature of what they were witnessing. These weren't ordinary Grandmaster rank beasts. They were truly powerful and exceptionally intelligent creatures. Very few beasts ever developed the capability for human speech, regardless of their rank. The fact that all 5 guardians could communicate verbally marked them as rare specimens that had achieved extraordinary levels of cultivation. "They can speak," Noah said quietly to Lola, stating the obvious but needing to verbally process the implications. That level of intelligence combined with Grandmaster rank power makes them far more dangerous than the wolves or the grapehorn. These are creatures with genuine strategic thinking and communication abilities. Lola nodded grimly, her assessment of the situation becoming increasingly concerning. "Notice how they're positioned around the tree in a defensive perimeter. This isn't random, they've established territorial boundaries and are clearly prepared to defend their claims to the teardrop fruit. We're not just facing powerful beasts. We're dealing with intelligent competitors who have been planning and preparing for this moment." The fox's voice carried across the distance again, her tone suggesting she had heard every word of their whispered conversation despite the separation. "Oh, how amusing. They think we can't hear them plotting." Such adorable naivety from creatures so far from home. Lola responded to the fox's mockery with a sharp edge to her voice that carried her own brand of confident derision. "Oh, I apologize profusely. I had mistakenly thought the old hag couldn't hear us anymore at her advanced age. My sincere apologies for the confusion about your deteriorating senses." The parrot immediately burst into delighted giggles, clearly entertained by someone finally giving the fox a taste of her own medicine. The bear remained conspicuously silent, apparently choosing not to involve himself in verbal sparring between the 2 females. The ethereal cat raised an eyebrow with what might have been mild interest or amusement. The turtle's ancient voice rumbled forth with patient concern. "There is no need for such hostility. We are all here for the same purpose. Unnecessary conflict only weakens us all before the true challenge begins." The 2-tailed fox's silver fur bristled slightly, her earlier amusement replaced by something colder and more dangerous. "Your power is certainly impressive for a demon. I'll grant you that much. The archmage at your age suggests considerable talent and dedication. But you shouldn't let those accomplishments make you cocky, little demon. I've burned demons far more older and more powerful than you to cinders." Lola's ruby eyes flashed with competitive fire as she fired back without hesitation. "Is that what you tell yourself to feel better about guarding fruit like a common watchdog? How about you stay seated, hoping some residual energy might rub off? How many decades have you been camping here waiting for scraps? Grandmother." The fox's tails lashed with barely contained fury at the pointed insult, her demeanor cracking to reveal genuine anger beneath. The clearing's tension increased dramatically as the verbal exchange threatened to escalate into actual combat. After letting out that final verbal shot at the fox, Lola waited for the inevitable comeback. But surprisingly, the 2-tailed creature simply remained in her position, her silver eyes glittering with cold calculation rather than responding to the provocation. The fox had apparently decided that words were no longer worth the effort. Noah turned to Lola with a practical question that had been on his mind. "It's not ripe yet, I assume?" "It's not, otherwise they would have already taken it," Lola confirmed with a slight nod. This time, Lola made certain to establish a sound barrier around their conversation using mana manipulation, deliberately hiding their discussion just to annoy the fox more. The petty maneuver worked perfectly. Although they weren't saying anything particularly secretive or strategic, the fox's ears flattened slightly with obvious irritation at being excluded from their exchange. However, she didn't push the issue or attempt to break through the barrier, apparently choosing to maintain her dignity rather than appear desperate to know what a human and a demon were going to say. "How long until it ripens?" Noah asked, studying the glowing teardrop fruit in the distance. Lola shook her head with uncertainty. "I'm not exactly sure, but based on the mana fluctuation patterns and the fruit's current luminosity, I'd estimate maybe a few hours at most, possibly less, depending on variables I can't accurately measure from this distance." Noah nodded at the assessment and decided how to spend the waiting period. He settled down onto the grass in a comfortable seated position, recognizing that standing around tensely for hours would only waste energy they might need later. Seeing him take a seat on the ground, Lola followed suit and positioned herself next to him. Their proximity was close enough to maintain easy conversation while allowing both of them to keep visual contact with all 5 Grandmaster beasts surrounding the tree. Time passed slowly as Noah and Lola maintained their position, the tension in the clearing thick despite the lack of immediate action. Then Noah began noticing movement at the periphery of the area, more presences arriving with varying levels of power. Additional beasts started appearing from the dense forest, drawn by the world tree's overwhelming magical signature and the promise of the ripening teardrop fruit. However, these newcomers didn't approach the inner circle where Lola, Noah, and the 5 Grandmaster rank beasts held their positions. Instead, they remained cautiously at the edges, approximately 100 meters away from the tree itself. The arriving creatures seemed to understand their limitations instinctively. They positioned themselves in a loose outer ring, maintaining respectful distance from the far more powerful entities that had claimed the prime territory. Their body language showed awareness that entering the inner circle would be nothing short of a death wish, given the overwhelming power disparity. Still, they remained at the edges, their eyes fixed on the glowing fruit with obvious hunger and desperate hope. Perhaps they believed an opportunity might present itself. A moment of distraction among the stronger competitors, or maybe scraps of power that might be released when the fruit was finally claimed. Noah observed the gathering crowd with curiosity, counting perhaps a dozen additional beasts of various species taking positions around the clearing's perimeter. Why are they staying so far back? Lola followed his gaze and nodded, keeping her voice low despite the sound barrier. Those are master-level beasts, ranging from mid to peak master rank. A few might be at the lower end of master rank, though those have practically no chance of gaining anything meaningful from this situation. She gestured subtly toward the outer ring. They understand the hierarchy clearly enough. Any master rank creature that tried to enter this inner circle with us and the 5 Grandmaster Guardians would be eliminated immediately. The power gap is simply too vast to bridge through courage or desperation alone. Noah nodded thoughtfully. It made perfect sense from a survival perspective. Even if the master rank beasts' numbers grew significantly, compared to these 5 Grandmaster Guardians, they represented virtually no threat. Even including himself and Lola in the calculation, the power hierarchy was brutally clear. Noah estimated he could take on a mid-master rank opponent, albeit with slight difficulty. As for peak master rank, that still remained a significant issue he couldn't reliably overcome. Still maintaining their hidden conversation, Noah raised a strategic question that had been brewing in his mind. You're concealing your peak Grandmaster rank status. Why not simply reveal your true power and dominate them into submission? You could probably intimidate them into backing down entirely. Lola shook her head with a slight frown, her thinking clearly more nuanced than simple displays of overwhelming force. That approach isn't ideal for several reasons. While revealing my actual rank would certainly make them fearful, that little fox with 2 tails certainly wouldn't have dared say what she said if she knew the truth. However, that fear doesn't exactly translate into a strategic advantage for us. She glanced toward the 5 guardians positioned around the tree. These beasts operate on survival instincts honed over centuries. Once they recognize something as significantly stronger than themselves, their response isn't submission or retreat. They gang up on the greatest threat and attack collectively. Eliminate the strongest competitor first, then compete among themselves for whatever remains. Noah's expression darkened with a frown as he processed the implications. That made unfortunate sense from an evolutionary perspective. Intelligent predators wouldn't simply accept defeat when faced with superior individual power. They'd coordinate to remove the threat before it could pick them off one by one. Although I could handle their combined assault, Lola continued with quiet confidence, it still wouldn't be worth the expenditure of energy and mana required. It's far better strategically to keep my true capabilities hidden until the critical moment. As long as they perceive me as merely peak Archmage rather than peak Grandmaster, They won't feel sufficiently threatened to abandon their territorial competition and unite against me. She smiled slightly, her tactical mind clearly working through various scenarios. This way, when the fruit finally ripens and conflict becomes inevitable, I can eliminate one of them decisively before the others fully understand what's happening. That transforms the situation from a potential 5 versus 1 scenario into a much more manageable 4 versus 1 confrontation. Inside the light elven kingdom's grand palace, the throne room's massive doors opened to admit a royal guard who approached with calm steps. The elf dropped to one knee before the elevated throne, his expression carefully neutral despite the tension evident in his posture. "Your Highness, he is ready," the guard reported, his voice steady. The he in question was Adrian Silveroak, the former captain of the royal guards whose betrayal had shaken the kingdom's security to its foundations. The questioning that was about to begin would determine the full extent of the damage his treachery had caused. Queen Seraphina nodded with cold acknowledgement, rising gracefully from her throne of living wood and exotic stones. Her movements carried the supernatural elegance that her consumption of the rose-petal candy had amplified beyond natural levels, every gesture seeming choreographed by invisible forces. She walked past the kneeling guard, her presence so overwhelming that he couldn't help but gulp involuntarily. Her beauty was almost painful to behold at close proximity, the enhanced charisma creating an aura that affected everyone nearby regardless of their actual feelings toward her. Her scent carried hints of flowers and magic that seemed designed to intoxicate the senses. Even though he revered her far beyond mere romantic attraction and had never harbored such inappropriate intentions toward his queen, the guard found himself struggling to maintain composure. The supernatural enhancement she had undergone transformed simple proximity into something that tested the mental fortitude of even her most loyal servants. Seraphina paid no attention to his reaction, having grown accustomed to the effect her presence had on those around her. She moved through the palace corridors with purpose, her expression calm but carrying undertones of cold determination that suggested the upcoming interrogation would be thorough and merciless. Guards stationed along her path bowed deeply as she passed, none daring to meet her eyes directly. The queen's mood was clearly focused and dangerous, and everyone with survival instincts recognized that this was not a moment for unnecessary interaction. She descended stone stairs that led to the palace's lower levels, where the interrogation chambers were located. The temperature dropped noticeably as she went deeper underground, the dampness and chill serving practical purposes for the unpleasant work conducted in these spaces. Finally, she reached a reinforced door guarded by 2 elite warriors who immediately stood at attention upon her arrival. They opened the heavy portal without requiring verbal command, revealing the chamber beyond. Adrian Silveroak sat bound to a chair in the center of the stone room, his body showing clear signs of the preparation the Archmage had administered. Bruises covered visible skin, and his breathing came in shallow gasps that suggested broken ribs. His proud bearing as captain of the guards had been dismantled through the application of pain and magical coercion. Yet his eyes still carried defiance when they met Seraphina's gaze, some core of stubbornness refusing to break despite the obvious suffering he had endured. The queen entered the chamber with measured steps, her expression revealing nothing as she assessed her nephew's condition. The Archmage who had conducted the initial preparations stood to the side, awaiting further instructions. "Leave us," Seraphina commanded quietly, her voice carrying absolute authority that brooked no discussion. The Archmage and guards departed immediately, closing the heavy door behind them. The soundproofing enchantments activated automatically, ensuring complete privacy for whatever was about to occur. Seraphina stood before her bound nephew, studying him with cold calculation. "Adrian, we have much to discuss about your choices and their consequences." Seraphina began her interrogation, her questions designed to extract information about every aspect of Adrian's betrayal. She wanted names, dates, locations of meetings, details about what intelligence he had passed to the Dark Elves, and most importantly, what he knew about their plans regarding the mysterious shopkeeper. But Adrian, who had supposedly been prepared through hours of careful physical and magical coercion, did not budge under her questioning. His body bore the marks of torture, Yet something in his spirit had hardened rather than broken. For the first time in his life, and especially before his formidable aunt, he remained absolutely firm in his convictions. "What you are doing is wrong, Aunt Seraphina," Adrian said through swollen lips, his voice hoarse but unwavering. "All elves are elves. Skin color doesn't define us. Element affinity doesn't determine our worth. These artificial divisions serve nothing but perpetual conflict." Seraphina's expression remained cold as she listened, though something flickered in her eyes at his unexpected defiance. Adrian continued despite his obvious pain, drawing on reserves of courage he hadn't known he possessed before the Queen. "We coexisted peacefully before this endless war. This is known in the ancient scribe's document that you hid. It is clear for anyone reading it without prejudice. The Dark Elves and Light Elves both descended from the same source, the twin founders Ingui and Alboin. We are one people divided by personal vendettas and pride." The Queen's supernatural beauty seemed to sharpen into something more dangerous, her presence becoming oppressive rather than merely overwhelming. But Adrian pushed forward, sensing he might never have another opportunity to speak these truths. "You've built your entire reign on maintaining this division, on convincing our people that the Dark Elves represent existential threats rather than simply different branches of the same family tree. But the secret you've been hiding will come out eventually. The truth about our shared ancestry, about the artificial nature of this conflict, about the machinations that keep us at war." "Enough!" Seraphina's voice cracked like thunder through the chamber, her composure shattering for the first time in a long time inside her own kingdom. Genuine rage consumed the Queen's carefully maintained control. Her eyes blazed with fury. Adrian's words were clearly touching something far more personal and dangerous. "Insolent!" she spat, her supernatural charisma transforming from attractive to terrifying as her anger manifested physically. The air around her shimmered with mana, and light started to radiate from her body. She became like a miniature sun in a closed room. Adrian's eyes couldn't stare at the display. His eyes lowered to the ground, but he maintained his defiant gaze, apparently having decided that he had nothing left to lose by speaking truths that everyone carefully avoided acknowledging. "You dare lecture me about history and morality?" Seraphina continued, her voice low and deadly. "You, who betrayed your own people, your own blood. For what? Some naive idealism about unity that ignores decades of conflict and incompatible interests." She moved closer to her bound nephew, her presence now actively hostile rather than merely intimidating. "The ancient scribes you reference so reverently also document the reasons for our separation. The philosophical differences made coexistence impossible. The betrayals that created wounds too deep to heal through simple platitudes about shared ancestry." Adrian's defiance seemed to grow rather than diminish in the face of her fury. "Those betrayals were orchestrated by leaders like you who benefit from eternal conflict. The common people on both sides suffer while the powerful maintain their positions through manufactured fear and hatred." Seraphina's hand moved with blinding speed, striking Adrian across the face with force that would have killed a master-level awakener. His head snapped to the side, blood spraying from his split lip, but he slowly turned back to face her with that same infuriating determination still burning in his eyes. "You know nothing of what leadership requires," Seraphina whispered with deadly calm, her initial explosive rage settling into something colder and more dangerous. "I might not know what leadership requires," Adrian said quietly, his voice carrying a hidden trauma that transcended his physical suffering. "But I know what it prohibits. You are killing your own people for your own interests, sacrificing elven lives on both sides to maintain a war that serves nothing but your personal vendetta." He paused, gathering courage for what he was about to say next. The words themselves seemed to cause him physical pain beyond what the torture had inflicted. "I know why you are doing this. Really, truly know. You hate the Dark Elves because—" He stopped abruptly, the memory of the event having clear and devastating effect on him. His defiant expression cracked slightly, revealing the grief that still haunted him despite the years that had passed. The Queen looked at him in genuine shock, her rage momentarily displaced by surprise that he would dare speak of that particular tragedy. You want them exterminated because they killed your beloved little sister. Adrian finished, his voice breaking slightly. My mother. As he spoke those words, melancholy and profound sadness erupted in his heart despite his attempts to maintain composure. His mother's death had taken an enormous toll on him, and the wound remained open even after all this time. She had been everything to him and to their entire people. His mother had been the saint of the light elven tribe, beloved by everyone who knew her. Her kindness, wisdom, and genuine care for all people had made her a unifying figure whose loss had devastated the entire kingdom in ways that went beyond simple consequences. Yet, on what should have been an uneventful day, her extraordinary beauty had attracted dangerous attention from a group of Grandmaster-rank dark elves who had wanted to harass her. When she refused their advances, the situation had escalated with horrifying speed. In the violent confrontation that followed, both his mother and father had died defending each other alongside their guards. From that moment forward, Queen Seraphina had wanted every dark elf dead. Her grief and rage had transformed into genocidal determination that persisted even after the actual perpetrators had been hunted down and killed through extensive operations. Justice for the specific criminals wasn't enough to satisfy her need for revenge. Adrian understood his aunt's pain intimately because he shared it. He hated his mother's killers with a passion that sometimes threatened to consume him entirely. The injustice of losing someone so pure and good to such senseless violence created wounds that would never fully heal. But that hatred for the specific murderers didn't mean that the entire dark elf race deserved extermination. This wasn't how justice or morality worked, no matter how much emotional satisfaction collective punishment might provide. Every soul is responsible for their own actions, Adrian said firmly, his voice steadying as he articulated the belief that had led him to betray his own kingdom. No soul should be burdened with the actions of another soul. That's my fundamental belief, and it's why I cannot support this war. He looked directly into Seraphina's eyes, seeing the pain and rage that still burned there after all these years. Mother wouldn't have wanted this. She believed in unity and compassion, even toward those who were different from us. Using her death as justification for genocide dishonors everything she stood for. Seraphina's expression had transformed from rage to something far more complex and painful. The mention of her sister had stripped away the facade she maintained so carefully, revealing the grieving woman beneath the crown. Don't you dare tell me what my sister would have wanted, Seraphina whispered, her voice carrying more genuine emotion than Adrian had heard from her in years. You were a child when she died. You don't understand what was lost that day, or what kinds of monsters we're dealing with. I was old enough to remember every single detail of her face, Adrian countered. Old enough to know that she would be horrified by what you've become in her name. She taught me that revenge and hatred only create more suffering, that breaking the cycle of violence required someone to be brave enough to choose differently. The Queen's hands were trembling now, her composure finally cracking under the weight of memories she had tried to bury. The Queen reacted with explosive violence, her hand striking Adrian's face with far greater force than before. This slap carried a lot of her strength behind it, and Adrian's face swelled immediately from the devastating impact. Blood sprayed from his mouth as teeth loosened from the brutal blow. Before he could recover, Seraphina grabbed him by his neck with a crushing grip, her fingers digging into his throat with pressure that cut off his air supply. Her eyes blazed with killing intent so pure and concentrated that it manifested as a visible distortion in the air around her. Tell me now, what exactly did you say to these dark elf beasts? I want all the details, every conversation, every piece of intelligence you shared. Otherwise, I will kill you right here, right now. Betrayal of this magnitude deserves nothing less than death, she demanded, her voice deadly calm despite the fury radiating from her entire being. Adrian struggled to breathe against her iron grip, his face turning colors as her grip affected him. But even facing imminent death, he managed to force out words through his constricted throat. Kill me then, he gasped, his defiance somehow persisting even in the face of certain death. But just know that, if you do, you would be digging your own grave. You would be joining me in death soon enough. I wouldn't want you to meet my mother with your current self, Aunt. She would be ashamed of what you've become. Just know that you will face her eventually with the deed of killing her only son. Although he genuinely didn't want to die, Adrian had placed his faith and trust in the mysterious shopkeeper whose appearance had changed everything. The more he delayed this interrogation, the higher the chance that the human would successfully obtain the World Tree's teardrop and potentially use its power and fulfill the deal between the two of them. Every minute he resisted was another minute for events to unfold beyond her control. Insolent! How dare you threaten me? Serafina screamed, her composure shattering completely as rage overwhelmed her thinking. She delivered a devastating blow to Adrian's temple, the force behind the strike knocking him unconscious instantly. His head lolled forward as consciousness fled, his body going limp in the restraints that held him. Serafina stepped back, breathing heavily as she tried to regain control over her emotions. She stared at Adrian's unconscious form with undisguised hatred, her hands trembling with the desire to simply crush his throat and end his treacherous existence permanently. But she couldn't kill him. Not yet. Not while he potentially possessed information that could prevent catastrophic damage to her kingdom's security. His death would provide emotional satisfaction but eliminate any possibility of extracting the intelligence she desperately needed. Her mind worked through alternatives, searching for methods that might break his unexpected resistance where conventional torture and interrogation had failed. Then a solution occurred to her, one that carried its own terrible implications but might prove effective where other approaches had not. Her face grew back to its cold expression, and her composure was regained before she opened the door, then turned toward the guard who had remained stationed outside the interrogation chamber. "Bring Shams," Serafina commanded, her voice carrying absolute authority. The guard's face went pale with shock at the order, his composure cracking for the first time during this entire disturbing situation. "Her Highness must be really mad to bring Shams. This has implications that are not light at all. Once that path is chosen, Adrian will become—" The guard bowed deeply and departed quickly, clearly wanting to distance himself from whatever was about to occur. The mention of Shams had carried weight that suggested something far worse than the previous torture or interrogation methods. Serafina looked back at Adrian's unconscious form, her expression unreadable. Whatever Shams represented, it was apparently her last resort for extracting information from someone who had proven unexpectedly resistant to standard coercion. Inside the interrogation chamber, Serafina wasn't the only conscious person present besides the unconscious Adrian. Shams had also entered, his ancient presence immediately changing the atmosphere of the room. Shams was a light elf, considered one of the oldest living members of their entire race. Unlike other elves of his advanced age who typically maintained youthful appearances through elf's longevity and magical vitality, he looked incredibly old. His face was deeply lined with wrinkles, his hair completely white and thin, his posture slightly stooped from the weight of countless centuries. Elves weren't known for visible aging, which made his appearance all the more striking and unsettling to those who encountered him. The deterioration suggested something unnatural had occurred, some price paid that exceeded what time alone could exact. He usually kept to himself in self-imposed isolation, not wanting attention or social interaction of any kind, simply living life as it was on top of a remote mountain that he had claimed as his permanent home, far from the politics and conflicts of elven society. "Your Highness, you called for me?" Shams asked, his voice carrying the rasp of extreme age despite elves typically maintaining vocal clarity throughout their lives. Serafina met his ancient eyes directly, her expression showing no hesitation about what she was requesting. "I want his memories searched, comprehensively. Everything he knows about his contacts with the Dark Elves, every piece of intelligence he shared, all his knowledge about their plans regarding the mysterious shopkeeper." Shams frowned deeply upon hearing the request, his weathered face showing genuine concern. This was no small thing she was asking. The memory search skill, which was his signature ability and the reason for his reputation throughout the kingdom, didn't only damage the victim subjected to it. The technique also harmed the practitioner who wielded it, consuming something far more precious than simple mana. "Your Highness, this skill. You understand the consequences," Shams said slowly, wanting to ensure she fully grasped what she was ordering. Adrian might never recover from the procedure. The intrusion into his mind could leave him brain dead, or at minimum severely disabled, unable to comprehend anything beyond simple primitive thoughts. His consciousness could be permanently shattered. Serafina nodded without visible emotion at the description of what would happen to her nephew. I know the risks to him. His betrayal has forfeited any consideration I might have shown to family bonds. The information he possesses is worth more than his continued mental functionality. Shams studied her for a long moment before continuing. And the consequences I will face? The memory search consumes life force with each use. It's why I appear as I do, despite elven longevity that should have preserved my youth for millennia more. Each search shaves years, sometimes decades, from my remaining time. The Queen had clearly anticipated this objection and prepared her counteroffer. In return for this service, once we achieve victory in the war, your family will receive a constant supply of enhancement items from the human shopkeeper, who I'm certain you've heard about. The premium products that can extend lifespan, restore vitality, cure ailments that normal magic cannot touch. She paused to let the value of that promise sink in before adding more immediate incentives. As for your current situation and recovery from this procedure, I will ensure that your mountain and all its neighboring territory is completely sealed off by royal decree. Nobody will ever disturb your isolation again. You complained about intrusions from travelers and hunters several times over the years. That problem will be permanently eliminated. You will be able to recover and rest without any worries or interruptions. Full protection, complete privacy, and resources for your family's future prosperity. Shams calculated the pros and cons of the offer. The deal was favorable for his family's long-term interests. His descendants would benefit enormously from guaranteed access to the shopkeeper's miraculous items, resources that could elevate them to positions of power and security within elven society. Besides, the years he had left were objectively few regardless of whether he performed this memory search or not. He had already lived far longer than most elves could hope to achieve, experiencing centuries of history that younger generations only read about in ancient texts. He had lived long enough. Sacrificing what remained to secure his family's future seemed like an acceptable trade, perhaps even a noble final act that gave meaning to his accumulated suffering. I accept your terms, Your Highness, Shams said finally, his voice carrying resignation mixed with acceptance. Before I start the process, I will need complete silence and 10 minutes of uninterrupted concentration to perform the search properly. A smile formed on Serafina's face. Of course, I will make sure nobody interrupts you at all. I will be in the throne room, waiting for your arrival. Shams nodded before he walked towards Adrian Silveroak, placing his hand on his head. In the forest surrounding the World Tree, Lola and Noah maintained their positions while the gathering continued to grow. The tension in the clearing had become almost suffocating as more and more creatures arrived, drawn by the overwhelming mana signature like moths to flame. Noah was growing increasingly frustrated as he watched the outer ring of master-rank beasts expand with each passing hour. The clearing's periphery was now crowded with dozens of creatures of varying species and power levels, all waiting with desperate hunger for any opportunity that might present itself. Hey, when is this damn thing going to ripen? When the entire forest's beast population is assembled here? Noah asked with obvious irritation, gesturing toward the ever-growing crowd of spectators. Lola chuckled at his impatience, though she understood the concern behind his complaint. It should be very soon now. The mana fluctuations from the teardrop have become increasingly unstable over the past hour, which typically indicates the final stages before full maturation. The atmosphere in the clearing had transformed dramatically from the relatively calm standoff that had existed when they first arrived. Everyone was now intensely wary of each other, the mounting tension creating an environment where a single wrong move could trigger explosive violence. Even the 5 Grandmaster rank beasts weren't maintaining their earlier relaxed postures anymore. The two-tailed fox's silver fur was subtly bristled, her multiple tails swishing with readiness. The jade turtle had withdrawn partially into its shell, preparing defensive measures. The ethereal cat's translucent form had become more solid and defined, suggesting active channeling of power. The massive bear was openly growling at anything that moved too close to its claimed territory. Even the parrot had stopped its mocking laughter, perched tensely in the tree with sharp eyes tracking every potential threat. The master-rank beasts at the periphery were equally on edge, knowing that when the teardrop finally ripened, chaos would erupt and only the fastest or luckiest would have any chance of obtaining even fragments of power. Noah could feel his own body tensing in anticipation of the inevitable conflict. The waiting was somehow worse than actual combat would be. The waiting continued for another tense hour, every second feeling stretched and distorted by the overwhelming anticipation. The mana emanating from the world tree's teardrop had reached levels that made the air itself feel heavy and charged with barely contained energy. Small lightning bolts of pure magical discharge crackled between the branches of the world tree, visual evidence of the immense power building toward its critical threshold. Lola's posture suddenly shifted, her peak archmage-level perception detecting subtle changes in the fruit's energy signature that others couldn't yet sense. Her expression became deadly serious as she turned to Noah. "It's about to ripen," she said quietly, her voice carrying absolute certainty. "Seconds, maybe a minute at most. Prepare yourself now." Without waiting for acknowledgement, Lola reached into her storage and withdrew a luxury fruit smoothie. She unsealed it and downed the entire contents in several quick gulps, the premium enhancement flooding through her system with immediate effect. Before the first item's energy had fully integrated, she was already consuming the mystical herbal tea, its purifying properties washing through her body while granting spiritual sight that would allow her to perceive threats beyond normal vision. The instant coffee followed immediately after, the potent brew enhancing her mental capabilities and providing immunity to psychological attacks that some of the more cunning beasts might attempt. The triple consumption showed how seriously Lola was taking this fight. The situation demanded maximum preparation. Noah had already reached the same conclusion about what was necessary for survival. He was acutely aware that he represented the weak link in their partnership, someone who could be targeted and used as leverage against Lola if he couldn't defend himself adequately. Any of the 5 Grandmaster rank beasts could kill him in seconds if he faced them with just his base capabilities. He withdrew his own set of enhancement items and began consuming them rapidly. The luxury fruit smoothie went down first, its effects immediately flooding his system with power that made his attributes surge dramatically. The herbal tea followed, purifying accumulated toxins while opening his spiritual perception to new levels of awareness. The instant coffee completed the triple enhancement, sharpening his mind and doubling his comprehension speed while creating mental barriers against manipulation. The combined effects were extraordinary. Noah could feel his combat power skyrocketing toward levels that approached early Grandmaster rank, at least temporarily. While he still couldn't reliably kill opponents at that level, he could now survive their attacks long enough to matter in the chaotic battle that was about to erupt. Both of them experienced the full scope of the enhancements simultaneously. Enhanced focus made their surroundings appear in crystalline clarity, every detail standing out with perfect definition. Mental attack immunity created invisible barriers around their consciousness that would deflect psychological assaults. Doubled comprehension speed allowed them to process tactical information and react to threats with supernatural quickness. The toxin purification washed through their bodies like cleansing fire, removing accumulated impurities and optimizing their physical systems for maximum performance. Spiritual sight overlaid their normal vision with additional layers of perception, revealing mana flows, aura signatures, and energy patterns that had been invisible moments before. Most dramatically, all their attributes increased by 100% for the duration of the enhancement. Noah's already absurd vitality of 420 points effectively doubled to 840. Making him feel like a different person. His other attributes similarly surged, transforming him from capable to genuinely formidable. Lola's peak Grandmaster capabilities amplified to truly terrifying levels that exceeded what most practitioners could achieve even at their absolute peaks. The combination of her natural power and the triple enhancement made her incredibly powerful. The teardrop fruit suddenly blazed with blinding light, its internal glow intensifying to levels that forced even the Grandmaster beasts to shield their eyes. The mana signature exploded outward in waves that created visible distortions in space itself, reality seeming to bend around the concentrated power. Then the fruit ripened completely, its surface transforming from translucent to solid perfection. The teardrop shape seemed to condense all the ambient magical energy into a single point of absolute purity, representing power that could transform anyone who consumed it. The master-rank beasts at the periphery tensed immediately but remained in their positions, their survival instincts overpowering their desperate hunger for the power inside the teardrop. They understood with brutal clarity that entering the inner circle now would mean instant death. The power differential between them and the Grandmaster Guardians was simply too vast to bridge through courage or numbers. Unlike the master-level beasts, the 5 Grandmaster rank beasts all moved simultaneously, their restraint evaporating the instant the fruit achieved full maturation. The two-tailed fox, jade turtle, ethereal cat, massive bear, and rainbow parrot launched themselves toward the world tree with explosive speed that blurred their bodies. However, none of them were foolish enough to focus solely on reaching the fruit while ignoring their competitors. Each beast immediately began launching attacks at the others while moving, creating a chaotic storm of destructive techniques that filled the clearing with overwhelming violence. The two-tailed fox conjured blades of silver moonlight that shot toward the bear and turtle, attempting to slow their advance while she accelerated her own approach. The jade turtle created walls of solidified earth that erupted from the ground to block the cat and parrot's paths, forcing them to waste precious moments navigating obstacles. The ethereal cat phased through the barriers, but found itself targeted by the bear's devastating earth element attacks that cratered the ground and sent shockwaves through the clearing. The massive bear simply charged forward with overwhelming physical force, its body wreathed in protective earth armor that deflected incoming attacks while its momentum carried it toward the prize. The rainbow parrot took to the air, using its aerial advantage to avoid ground-based obstacles while raining energy bolts down on all 4 competitors indiscriminately. The chaos was breathtaking in its complexity and violence. Each Grandmaster Beast was simultaneously attacking, defending, and racing toward the fruit, their long years of combat experience allowing them to process multiple threats while maintaining focus on their ultimate objective. Massive explosions rocked the clearing as their techniques collided, creating secondary effects that threatened everything nearby. Trees shattered under stray attacks. Crystal formations exploded into deadly shrapnel. The ground itself buckled and reformed as earth manipulation warred against spatial distortions. Noah and Lola remained in their positions for the moment, watching the initial chaos while calculating the optimal moment to make their own move. Rushing in immediately would simply add them to the targets everyone else was already attacking. Better to wait for the perfect opening when the 5 beasts had fully committed to their assault patterns. "Wait for the opening," Lola said quietly, her spiritual sight tracking the complex interplay of attacks and counterattacks. "They're going to create opportunities through their mutual interference. That's when we move." Noah nodded, his own perception working overtime to process the battle unfolding before them. The enhanced comprehension speed allowed him to track individual techniques and predict likely outcomes with clarity that would have been impossible without the consumables. The teardrop fruit hung in the tree above the chaos, glowing with concentrated power that represented the culmination of the world tree's decades-long cultivation cycle. Whoever claimed it would gain advantages that could shift the balance of power throughout the entire region. Lola's spiritual sight tracked the chaotic battle with perfect clarity, her eyes tracking the movements and attacks of the Grandmasters before her. She waited patiently, watching for the precise moment when the 5 Grandmaster Beasts would create the opening she needed through their mutual interference to deal the biggest damage at once. The opportunity came when the two-tailed fox launched a devastating lunar technique at the bear while simultaneously dodging an earth spike from the turtle. Both the fox and bear were momentarily committed to their actions, their defensive postures compromised by offensive focus. "Now," Lola whispered, and moved from her place. Her speed with the triple enhancement was staggering, covering the distance to the inner conflict zone in a blur that left afterimages in her wake. Rather than targeting a single opponent, she conjured 2 massive streams of fire that split and tracked toward both the fox and bear simultaneously. The fox's eyes widened in shock as she detected the incoming attack too late to properly defend. She attempted to raise a moonlight barrier, But Lola's fire was operating at peak Grandmaster levels, amplified by the Smoothie's 100% attribute boost. The flames punched through the hasty defense and engulfed the two-tailed creature with devastating force. The bear fared no better. Its earth armor provided some protection, but Lola's concentrated fire was hot enough to liquefy stone. The protective armor cracked and shattered under the thermal assault, allowing flames to reach the flesh beneath and inflict severe burns across the massive beast's body. Both creatures screamed in agony as Lola's assault inflicted catastrophic damage in the span of seconds. The fox's silver fur was scorched black in multiple places, her tail singed and smoking. The bear's entire left side showed severe thermal damage, the smell of burning flesh filling the area. The two-tailed fox, heavily injured and barely maintaining consciousness, screamed out a warning to the others. A peak Grandmaster. This demon was hiding her true strength the entire time. The revelation sent shockwaves through the master rank combatants. The other Grandmaster beasts didn't need the fox's declaration to recognize what had just occurred. Lola's displayed power was unmistakably at peak Grandmaster rank, a tier that the most powerful entities in the entire forest wanted to achieve. She had been concealing capabilities that placed her among the absolute apex predators. Rather than deterring the remaining three beasts, the revelation seemed to drive them with even greater desperation. The jade turtle, ethereal cat, and rainbow parrot all recognized that if they didn't claim the teardrop immediately, this overwhelming demon would take it for herself. Their only chance lay in reaching the fruit before she could eliminate them all. The bear attempted to rise despite its severe injuries, but Lola sent another concentrated fire blast that knocked it unconscious and left it smoking on the scorched earth. The two-tailed fox tried to crawl away from the conflict, her earlier arrogance completely shattered by the reality of facing someone operating on a fundamentally higher level. 2 of the 5 guardians were effectively eliminated, their combat capabilities reduced to nothing by Lola's devastating opening assault. 3 remained active in the fight. The turtle with its incredible defensive capabilities, the cat with its ethereal phasing abilities, and the parrot with its aerial advantage. A knowing smile formed on Lola's face as she darted directly toward the world tree, closing the distance with explosive speed that left the 3 remaining beasts scrambling to intercept. She launched attacks at all of them simultaneously, forcing defensive responses that slowed their own approach to the prize. The turtle raised massive earth barriers to block her fire streams. The cat phased into its translucent state to avoid direct hits. The parrot took to higher altitude, raining energy bolts downward while maintaining safe distance from her devastating flames. All 3 managed to dodge or deflect her initial assault through their specialized abilities, but Lola had accomplished her objective. She now stood between them and the teardrop fruit, her position forcing them to go through her to reach their prize. "Back off now and you live," Lola stated coldly, her voice carrying absolute authority. "Continue this fight and you die here. I'm offering you one chance to walk away with your lives." The 3 beasts hesitated for only a moment. They had reached this critical stage through decades or centuries of effort and patience. The teardrop represented their best chance at advancement to the peak of Grandmaster rank, possibly even breaking through to legendary tiers that few creatures ever achieved. Giving up now, when the prize was so close, felt impossible despite the overwhelming threat she represented. The turtle, cat, and parrot exchanged glances laden with meaning. Some unspoken communication passed between them as they simultaneously reached the same conclusion. Their only realistic chance lay in cooperation rather than continued individual competition. They immediately abandoned their attacks on each other and turned their combined attention toward Lola, forming a temporary alliance born of desperate necessity. The 3 Grandmaster rank beasts believed that coordinating their assault might have enough combined power to overwhelm even a peak Grandmaster opponent. The turtle created earth constructs that rushed toward Lola from the ground. The cat phased through her defenses to strike from unexpected angles. The parrot bombarded her position from above with concentrated energy attacks. The coordinated assault was genuinely impressive, demonstrating why these creatures had survived to their current ranks. But unknown to the 3 beasts, this response was exactly what Lola had been planning and hoping for. She gave Noah a barely perceptible signal, a slight gesture that would have been invisible to anyone not specifically watching for it. Noah moved immediately, his enhanced attributes allowing him to accelerate with speed that rivaled low Grandmaster rank practitioners despite his official adept ranking. While all attention remained focused on the spectacular battle between Lola and the three Grandmaster beasts, he moved sneakily through the chaos, using the chaos and smoke from burning vegetation as cover. The clearing had erupted into absolute pandemonium as Lola engaged all three opponents simultaneously, her flames creating walls of fire that served dual purposes. They defended against incoming attacks while also creating visual barriers that obscured Noah's approach to the World Tree. He moved slowly but surely, his spiritual sight allowing him to navigate through the chaotic mana flows and avoid detection by the distracted combatants. Every eye remained locked on Lola's spectacular display of power, making Noah's subtle approach virtually invisible despite occurring in plain sight. The teardrop fruit hung just above him now, glowing with concentrated power that made his senses ache from proximity to such pure magical energy. Just a few more meters and he could reach it while the Grandmaster beasts remained completely focused on eliminating what they perceived as the only real threat to their prize. Just as Noah was about to close his fingers around the glowing teardrop fruit, he felt the wind particles nearby behave in an unusual pattern. The air currents shifted in ways that didn't match the ambient chaos of the ongoing battle, creating disturbances that his wind manipulation sensitivity immediately registered as wrong. His senses screamed danger at him with such intensity that he reacted on pure instinct. Noah leapt backward, creating immediate distance from the fruit just as something materialized in the exact space where he had been standing a fraction of a second earlier. A lizard-like creature with mottled scales appeared suddenly, its extraordinarily long tongue extending toward where Noah's hand had been moments ago. The beast was approximately 6 feet long with a body built for stealth and assassination rather than direct combat. Its eyes were cold and calculating, showing intelligence that matched the other Grandmaster Guardians. Noah stared at the creature in shock as it vanished once more, its form blurring and disappearing so completely that even his spiritual sight struggled in tracking it. The lizard's invisibility wasn't simple at all. An invisible Grandmaster rank lizard? Noah thought with alarm, immediately reassessing the entire tactical situation. This isn't good development. He just exposed my position and ruined my plans. He didn't waste time on shock, instead immediately launching whirling blades of compressed wind toward the area where the lizard had been. The technique served dual purposes, potentially damaging the hidden threat while also using the wind currents to map its position through disturbance patterns. His eyes darted to the teardrop fruit, which remained hanging from its branch, still unclaimed despite all the violence erupting around it. The lizard had somehow gotten within striking distance without any of them detecting its approach. The creature had likely been hiding under their awareness the entire time, using its invisibility to remain undetected while the more obvious threats focused on each other. Or perhaps it had only recently moved into close proximity, timing its approach to coincide with maximum chaos when detection would be most difficult. Either explanation made sense for an ambush predator of this caliber. Unable to see the lizard with normal or even spiritual vision, Noah began actively trying to feel the wind particles in his immediate area, using his level 15 wind manipulation to create a sensory net that could detect disturbances in airflow. Any physical object moving through space, regardless of invisibility, would displace air molecules in detectable patterns. The technique required intense concentration, forcing him to divide his attention between maintaining awareness of the larger battle and tracking microscopic changes in wind currents around him. His doubled comprehension speed made the complex multitasking possible where it would have been impossible before the enhancement. The other Grandmaster beasts had finally noticed Noah's dangerous proximity to the prize, their attention momentarily pulled from Lola's overwhelming assault. The ethereal cat immediately attempted to disengage from the fight, her translucent form beginning to phase toward the tree and the vulnerable human who had somehow penetrated so close to the teardrop. "All of you focus on me," Lola commanded with authority that brooked no argument. "That human is under my protection. Anyone who attacks him answers to me directly, and I promise you won't survive the experience." The parrot squawked with frustration but didn't dare test her declaration. The three remaining Grandmaster beasts found themselves completely locked down by Lola's overwhelming presence, unable to pursue their actual objective, while this peak Grandmaster demon monopolized their attention through sheer intimidation and superior power. Noah heard Lola's declaration and felt both gratitude and pressure. She was creating the space he needed to deal with the invisible lizard and potentially claim the fruit, but that meant he had to actually succeed in this incredibly dangerous task. The weight of their entire plan now rested on his ability to overcome a Grandmaster rank stealth predator while somehow securing the World Tree's teardrop. The invisible lizard seemed to sense his moment of distraction, launching another attack that Noah barely detected through his wind sensing. He rolled sideways as the creature's tongue lashed through the space where his head had been, the appendage moving with lethal speed and precision. I can't keep playing defense, Noah realized as he came up from his roll. I need to force this thing into the open and end this quickly before the situation deteriorates further. Noah's mind raced through his available options as he sensed another disturbance in the wind currents indicating the lizard's repositioning. The creature was circling him like a predator stalking wounded prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike with its venomous tongue or razor-sharp claws. Playing defense against an invisible Grandmaster opponent is suicide when my enhancements will end soon, Noah concluded, his comprehension allowing him to process tactical information with supernatural speed. I need to take the offensive and force it to reveal itself. He stopped retreating and instead launched a barrage of wind blades in a wide arc around his position, saturating the area with cutting attacks that would force the lizard to either dodge or defend. The compressed air constructs carved through space with lethal precision, creating a net of death that nothing could pass through unscathed. The invisible lizard was forced to move, and Noah's wind manipulation immediately detected the disturbance pattern. There, approximately 3 meters to his left, moving with serpentine fluidity to avoid the blade storm while maintaining its optical camouflage. Noah pivoted and launched his new striking eagle technique toward the detected position. The wind construct materialized and shot forward with predatory speed, tracking the disturbances in airflow that marked his invisible enemy's location. The eagle made contact, and Noah heard a hiss of pain as the technique detonated into its whirlwind prison of rotating blades. For a brief moment, the lizard's form flickered into partial visibility as its concentration on maintaining invisibility was disrupted by the sudden assault. But the creature's Grandmaster rank durability allowed it to break free from the whirlwind before suffering catastrophic damage. It vanished completely again, but Noah had confirmed something crucial. Causing it pain or forcing defensive reactions weakened its invisibility temporarily. I need to maintain constant pressure so it can't fully disappear, Noah realized, immediately launching another series of attacks without giving the lizard time to recover. Wind blades carved through the air from multiple angles, while Noah used his enhanced agility to constantly reposition, preventing the lizard from predicting his location for a counterattack. Each technique was calibrated to either damage or force defensive responses that would reveal the creature's position through wind disturbances. The lizard attempted to close distance for a melee attack, its natural weapons far more dangerous at close range than Noah's. He sensed the approach through air displacement and responded with a point-blank wind blast that sent the invisible creature tumbling backward. Fire manipulation, Noah suddenly thought, an idea formed with perfect clarity thanks to his doubled comprehension speed. I can use it in combination with wind to make the lizard visible. His fire manipulation was only at level 5, far weaker than his wind abilities, but he didn't need devastating flames for this application. He needed heat and wind that would interact with the lizard's camouflage in ways that pure wind attacks couldn't. Noah conjured flames across his hands, the fire responding sluggishly compared to his wind magic but still functional. Then he used wind manipulation to spread the flames outward in a controlled explosion that filled the area around him with heated air and flickering light. The combination had an immediate effect. The invisible lizard's camouflage was designed to bend light around its form, but that technique assumed relatively stable lighting conditions. The rapidly flickering firelight created constantly changing illumination patterns that the lizard's magic couldn't adapt to quickly enough. For a fraction of a second, Noah saw the creature's outline shimmer into partial visibility approximately 2 meters directly in front of him. The lizard realized its mistake immediately and attempted to relocate, but Noah had already committed to his attack. He generated wind currents superheated by his flames, creating a vortex of fire-enhanced air that tracked the lizard's movements through combined visual and wind-sensing data. The technique was crude compared to what a true dual-element specialist could achieve, but the synergy between fire and wind created effects his individual elements couldn't match. The superheated vortex caught the lizard mid-dodge, and this time its invisibility completely failed as the extreme heat created thermal distortions that overwhelmed its camouflage magic. The creature became fully visible, its mottled scales now clearly defined as it writhed in pain from the burning air. Noah didn't waste the opportunity. He launched multiple wind blades enhanced with traces of fire that made them burn as they cut, targeting the now visible lizard with precision strikes aimed at vulnerable points he could actually see rather than just sense. The lizard's tongue lashed out desperately, trying to poison or strangle Noah before he could finish it, but his enhanced attributes allowed him to dodge with speed that seemed to surprise the creature. His vitality made him far more durable than the lizard had calculated, while his temporary boost to all attributes meant he was operating closer to Grandmaster levels than his official rank suggested. Noah created distance and conjured another combination attack. Flames spread by wind in motions designed to maintain constant illumination that prevented the lizard from re-establishing its invisibility. The creature was now fighting at a severe disadvantage, its primary survival mechanism completely negated by Noah's innovative application of his dual elements. The lizard charged forward in desperation, recognizing that its stealth advantage was gone and only overwhelming physical force could save it now. Its claws extended to full length, each one capable of tearing through steel, while its tail whipped around to create a three-pronged attack that should have overwhelmed anyone below Grandmaster rank. But Noah's swordsmanship training and enhanced comprehension allowed him to read the attack direction and respond appropriately. He deflected the claws with precisely angled wind blades while using his aura-enhanced physical strength to parry the tail strike with his actual blade. The exchange left the lizard overextended, its momentum carrying it past Noah's position while leaving its flank exposed. Noah capitalized immediately, conjuring his most powerful wind blade technique and launching it at point-blank range directly into the creature's vulnerable side. The compressed air construct, enhanced with fire that made it burn as well as cut, carved deep into the lizard's torso. Blood sprayed outward as the attack penetrated through its scales and muscle to damage critical internal organs. The lizard screamed, a sound so alien and terrible that it made even the distant master-rank beasts flinch. Noah didn't allow mercy or hesitation to slow his assault. He followed up with another striking eagle, the wind construct slamming into the wounded lizard and exploding into its overwhelming whirlwind prison. This time, with the creature already severely injured and unable to maintain proper defenses, the rotating blades carved through flesh with devastating efficiency. The lizard thrashed desperately within the whirlwind, its blood spraying outward to paint the nearby crystals red. After 10 seconds of constant, sustained damage from hundreds of cutting attacks, hitting from every angle simultaneously, the creature finally collapsed and stopped moving. You have killed a Tier 5 camouflage lizard. Noah dismissed the whirlwind and stood breathing slightly heavier, his body aching from the intensity of combat against a Grandmaster opponent, even with his temporary enhancements. But he had won, eliminating a threat that should have been far beyond his capabilities through tactical thinking and the use or combining his available abolites. Meanwhile, Lola's battle with the 3 remaining Grandmaster beasts had intensified to catastrophic levels. The entire clearing had become a war zone of competing elemental forces, with earth constructs erupting from the ground to clash against walls of flames, while energy bolts rained down from above. The Jade Turtle had committed fully to defensive tactics, creating layer upon layer of earth armor that Lola's flames slowly melted through despite their extreme temperatures. The creature was buying time, hoping exhaustion would eventually compromise the demon's overwhelming power output. The ethereal cat phased constantly between solid and translucent states, attacking from unexpected angles while attempting to bypass Lola's defenses with a sneak attack. Each strike was precisely calculated to exploit perceived weaknesses, demonstrating her long years of combat experience against powerful opponents. The rainbow parrot remained airborne, using its altitude advantage to bombard Lola's position while staying out of direct retaliation range. Its energy attacks weren't individually devastating, but the constant barrage created pressure that forced Lola to maintain defensive awareness in multiple directions simultaneously. Lola responded to the coordinated assault with overwhelming firepower that literally reshaped the battlefield. She conjured massive columns of flame that reached toward the sky, each one hot enough to turn stone to lava. The turtle's earth constructs melted before they could reach her position. The cat's physical strikes were deflected by barriers of superheated air that scorched fur on contact. The parrot's energy bolts dissolved into the maelstrom surrounding her form. "You're all remarkably persistent for creatures facing inevitable death," Lola observed calmly despite the chaos surrounding her. "I admire the dedication, but this outcome was determined the moment I revealed my true power." She compressed her flames into 3 separate spheres, each one calibrated specifically for the opponent it would target. The technique demonstrated precise control that separated peak practitioners from those with merely overwhelming power. The first sphere shot toward the turtle and detonated against its earth armor with force that cracked through multiple defensive layers, finally reaching flesh and inflicting severe burns. The second tracked the cat's phasing movements and exploded exactly when the creature materialized for an attack, catching it solid and vulnerable. The third curved upward to strike the parrot mid-flight, singeing feathers and disrupting the aerial bombardment. All 3 beasts screamed in pain as Lola's coordinated assault inflicted significant damage simultaneously, demonstrating why peak Grandmaster practitioners were considered nearly unstoppable by anything below their rank. The battle was approaching its conclusion, with the 3 defenders clearly losing ground despite their desperate coordination. With the lizard now dead, still bleeding out on the scorched earth, Noah finally had some breathing room to focus on his actual objective. He stepped carefully over the creature's corpse, moving toward the glowing teardrop fruit that hung tantalizingly close above him. Unfortunately, as if all the forces in the world were conspiring against him, multiple master-rank beasts suddenly emerged from the outer perimeter and formed a threatening circle around his position. The creatures had been watching from safe distances, waiting for exactly this moment when he appeared vulnerable after an exhausting battle. Noah frowned deeply, frustration flashing across his features as he recognized what was happening. Now that he had killed the Grandmaster Lizard and was visibly breathing heavier from exertion, these opportunistic bastards thought they could swoop in and claim the prize for themselves. They had done nothing but watch from safety while he risked his life, and now they wanted to steal the fruits of his labor. The audacity of it ignited something cold and furious in Noah's chest. He suddenly laughed, the sound carrying dark amusement rather than any sort of humor. Noah began by withdrawing the same 3 enhancement items he had consumed earlier: luxury fruit smoothie, mystical herbal tea, and instant coffee. The master-rank beasts watched with growing confusion as Noah unsealed each container and downed the contents in quick succession. The effects took hold immediately. His flagging energy was completely rejuvenated while his attributes surged back to their enhanced peaks. His temporary fatigue evaporated as if it had never existed, replaced by fresh power that made his aura flare with intensity. Noah looked at their shocked faces with cold satisfaction, recognizing the exact moment when they realized their catastrophic miscalculation. These creatures had assumed he was at the limits of his capabilities, vulnerable and exhausted. Instead, he had simply refreshed all his enhancements and was now operating at full strength against opponents who were fundamentally weaker than the Grandmaster Lizard he had just eliminated. "You dug your own graves," Noah said quietly, his voice filled with certainty about what would happen to them. Then he moved, taking immediate action against the master-rank beasts who had foolishly thought they could challenge him. Noah moved with speed that the master-rank beasts simply couldn't track. His enhanced attributes placed him in a category that transcended what creatures at their level could fight or respond to effectively. His first target was a crystalline stag that had positioned itself slightly ahead of the others, apparently believing its mineral-hardened hide would provide adequate protection. Noah conjured a wind blade with casual precision and launched it at the creature's legs before it could even process the danger. The compressed air construct carved through the stag's supposedly impenetrable crystal armor like it was made of soft clay rather than hardened mineral. Both front legs were severed cleanly at the joints, sending the creature crashing forward onto the ground with a scream of shock and agony. Before any of the other beasts could react to save their fallen companion, Noah appeared directly beside the crippled stag. His aura-enhanced strength channeled through his leg as he delivered a devastating stomp to the creature's skull, the impact creating a sickening crunch that echoed across the clearing. You have killed a Tier 4 crystal stag. The other Master Rank beasts barely had time to process what had just occurred. One moment, their companion had been standing with them, and the next, it was a corpse with its head crushed into the scorched earth. The speed and brutality of the execution sent waves of primal terror through the surviving predators. They immediately realized their tactical error. Maintaining distance meant nothing against an opponent who could move faster than they could perceive and kill with single attacks. Their only hope lay in grouping together for mutual protection, using numbers to compensate for individual weakness. The beasts began converging toward a central point, attempting to form a defensive cluster where they could watch each other's backs and respond collectively to threats. But Noah had anticipated this exact response and was already moving to prevent their coordination. A massive dire wolf with fur that crackled with electricity was still several meters from joining the defensive formation when Noah intercepted it. The creature tried to generate a lightning discharge as a defense, but Noah's wind manipulation simply dispersed the electrical energy before it could concentrate properly. His hand closed around the dire wolf's throat with crushing force amplified by his aura enhancement. The beast's eyes went wide with shock as it realized the strength behind that grip vastly exceeded what any adept rank practitioner should possess. Noah squeezed, his fingers applying pressure that collapsed the wolf's windpipe and crushed vertebrae without any mercy. These beasts that had surrounded him deserved it. Every single one of them deserved the death that was approaching without exception. The dire wolf thrashed desperately for several seconds before its struggles weakened and finally ceased entirely. Noah released the corpse and let it drop to the ground like discarded garbage. You have killed a Tier 4 thunder wolf. The remaining beasts had managed to form their defensive cluster, but the formation was already compromised by panic and terror. They watched Noah with expressions that showed they finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. This wasn't a vulnerable human they could overwhelm through numbers. This was a predator operating on a completely different level than they could match. Noah began walking toward them with slow steps, his casual approach somehow more terrifying than an aggressive charge would have been. His enhanced vitality meant their attacks would be largely ineffective even if they landed, while his combat capabilities could eliminate them one by one regardless of their desperate coordination. A flame bear tried to launch a preemptive attack, conjuring fire that should have been devastating against most opponents. But Noah's own fire manipulation, though weaker, allowed him to understand and counter the technique. He used wind to redirect the flames back toward their source, forcing the bear to waste energy defending against its own magic. While the bear was distracted, Noah generated multiple wind blades and launched them at a stone pangolin that had positioned itself as part of the defensive formation. The creature's armored plates provided no meaningful protection against attacks operating at his current power level. The blades carved through scale and hide to inflict deep wounds across the pangolin's body. The injured pangolin tried to burrow underground to escape, but Noah stamped down with an aura-enhanced force that created a shockwave through the earth. The ground itself seemed to reject the creature's attempt at flight, collapsing the tunnel and forcing it back to the surface, where Noah finished it with a precisely placed wind blade through the skull. You have killed a Tier 4 iron pangolin. The remaining beasts were now completely demoralized, their defensive formation falling apart as individual survival instincts overrode any pretense of coordination. Several attempted to flee in different directions, abandoning their companions in desperate bids to escape this overwhelming threat. Noah pursued the closest runner, a jade serpent that was attempting to slither away at impressive speed. He caught it easily, his enhanced agility making the chase completely one-sided. A wind blade severed the serpent's head from its body in a single clean cut. You have killed a Tier 4 jade serpent. A crimson hawk tried to take to the air, using its natural aerial advantage to escape the ground-bound slaughter. But Noah's wind manipulation allowed him to generate a powerful updraft that disrupted the bird's flight pattern and sent it tumbling back to Earth. Before it could recover, he impaled it with multiple wind blades that pinned it to the ground. You have killed a Tier 4 Bloodhawk. The flame bear that had attacked earlier tried one final desperate assault, charging directly at Noah with claws extended and fire wreathing its entire body. Noah simply stood his ground and allowed the beast to close the distance before delivering a devastating punch powered by his full aura enhancement directly to the bear's skull. The impact created a visible shockwave and dropped the massive creature instantly. You have killed a Tier 4 flame bear. Only 2 master rank beasts remained alive from the group that had foolishly surrounded him. A lynx and a stone tortoise, both paralyzed by terror as they watched their companions die with such. Noah looked at them with cold eyes that showed no mercy or hesitation. You should have stayed at the perimeter where you belonged. Noah looked at the final 2 survivors of the initial group, the lynx and stone tortoise, with a cold expression. Both creatures were frozen in terror, their survival instincts screaming at them to flee, but their bodies were unable to respond to the overwhelming killing intent radiating from this human who had slaughtered their entire group. The lynx attempted to use its natural stealth abilities to disappear into the background using the chaos, but Noah's spiritual sight tracked its every movement with perfect clarity. He conjured a wind spear and sent it directly through the creature's chest before it could fully vanish. The compressed air construct punching through ribs to destroy vital organs. You have killed a Tier 4 lynx. The stone tortoise tried to retreat into its shell, relying on defensive capabilities that had protected it through countless battles. But Noah simply walked over to the withdrawn creature and channeled concentrated wind blades directly through the gaps in its armor, targeting the vulnerable flesh beneath with surgical precision. The tortoise's defenses meant nothing against attacks that could find and exploit every weakness. You have killed a Tier 4 stone tortoise. Noah sensed movement at the clearing's edge as more master rank beasts, having witnessed the slaughter, were now attempting to join the fray. Perhaps they believed numbers would eventually overwhelm him, or maybe desperation for the teardrop fruit had eroded their common sense entirely. He could feel them approaching from multiple directions, at least 5 or 6 additional master rank creatures converging on his position with speed that suggested coordinated assault. They clearly planned to attack simultaneously before he could pick them off individually. They're not going to reach me, Noah decided with absolute certainty. He channeled mana according to the pattern for his striking eagle technique, but this time he didn't create just one construct. His enhanced mana control and doubled comprehension speed allowed him to form 3 wind eagles simultaneously, something that should have been impossible at his skill level but became achievable through the combination of enhancements and natural talent. 3 wind eagles materialized around him, each one tracking toward a different approaching beast with predatory precision. The constructs shot forward with devastating speed, covering the distance to their targets in seconds. The first eagle intercepted a charging bronze boar, detonating into its whirlwind prison that trapped the creature and carved it to pieces with hundreds of rotating blades. You have killed a Tier 4 bronze boar. The second caught a leaping storm cat mid-jump, the whirlwind sphere suspending it in the air while methodically shredding through fur, flesh, and bone. You have killed a Tier 4 storm cat. The third, fourth, and fifth eagles found their targets with equal efficiency. A granite badger, a wind deer, and a frost fox, all eliminated before they could close within 50 meters of Noah's position. The slaughter happened so quickly that none of the approaching beasts had time to recognize their mistake and attempt retreat. You have killed a Tier 4 granite badger. You have killed a Tier 4 wind deer. You have killed a Tier 4 frost fox. The remaining master rank beasts at the clearing's perimeter finally understood the futility of their position. This human wasn't just strong. He possessed capabilities that placed him effectively beyond their ability to challenge. The survivors retreated en masse, abandoning any thoughts of competing for the teardrop as they fled back into the forest depths. Noah stood among the corpses of more than a dozen master rank beasts, his enhanced attributes still at full strength and his determination unshaken. Lola had been toying with the 3 remaining Grandmaster beasts, maintaining just enough pressure to keep them occupied while Noah dealt with his own challenges. But now, with the master rank threats eliminated and her companion clearly moving toward claiming the teardrop, it was time to end this charade decisively. She could feel the dormant skill that had awakened when she first consumed the luxury fruit smoothie days ago, the ability that she had been holding in reserve for exactly this kind of critical moment. The power thrummed beneath her skin, eager to be unleashed after being suppressed for so long. "I've enjoyed our dance," Lola said with a predatory smile that made all three beasts instinctively retreat. "But playtime is over now." Her aura suddenly exploded outward with intensity that dwarfed anything she had displayed so far. Flames erupted from her back, but these weren't simple magical fire. They were concentrated manifestations of her purest mana. Wings materialized, constructed entirely from living fire that burned with colors beyond normal spectrum. The flames shifted between deep crimson, bright orange, searing white, and hints of blue that suggested temperatures approaching absolute limits. Each wing stretched approximately 15 feet from her back, creating a span of over 30 feet that dominated the visual space around her. But the wings weren't merely decorative. As they unfurled completely, Lola's entire body underwent transformation into what could only be described as her infernal form. Her robes seemed to merge with the flames, creating an appearance that combined elegant fabric with liquid fire in patterns that shouldn't have been possible. Her ruby eyes now blazed with internal light that made them appear like twin stars burning with supernatural intensity. Her hair lifted and moved as if suspended in water, individual strands seeming to glow with their own internal radiance. The air around her shimmered with heat distortion so extreme that her exact outline became difficult to perceive. Yet despite the overwhelming power and destructive potential radiating from her transformed state, Lola remained stunningly beautiful rather than terrifying. The flames that wreathed her form created an aura of dangerous elegance, like a fairy of fire who had descended to walk among mortals. Her movements carried fluid grace that suggested the wings were natural extensions of her body rather than conjured constructs. The transformation had amplified every aspect of her capabilities. Her fire manipulation, already operating at peak Grandmaster levels, had intensified to something that approached legendary tier. Her physical attributes, strength, agility, even her vitality, had all surged dramatically beyond their normal peaks. The wings themselves provided flight capability while also serving as weapons and shields. The three Grandmaster beasts stared at her transformed state with expressions of absolute horror and disbelief. The Jade Turtle's ancient wisdom recognized immediately that they were no longer facing a merely powerful opponent. This was something that transcended normal categorization entirely. The ethereal cat's translucent form flickered with panic as her instincts screamed that escape had become the only rational response. The rainbow parrot's earlier mockery and laughter had completely vanished, replaced by genuine terror at witnessing power that shouldn't exist at Grandmaster rank. Lola's aura had surged to levels that made the ambient mana concentration around her actually visible as swirling patterns of distorted space. The pressure radiating from her transformed state created physical force that made even the distant master rank beasts struggle to maintain their footing. "Do you understand now?" Lola asked, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the flames comprising her wings. "This was never a fair competition. I was simply being courteous by allowing you to believe you had chances of success." The grin that spread across her face was both beautiful and terrifying, combining genuine amusement with satisfaction. The Jade Turtle tried to create earth barriers for protection, but Lola's fire wings swept forward and the flames simply dissolved the defensive constructs before they could fully form. She moved with speed that made her previous demonstrations look sluggish by comparison. The wings weren't just for show. They provided propulsion that allowed her to accelerate and maneuver in ways that defied normal physics. Lola appeared directly in front of the turtle before the ancient creature could even process that she had moved. Her hand, wreathed in flames that burned with white intensity, punched straight through the turtle's legendary defensive shell. The jade that should have been nearly indestructible cracked and shattered like glass under the concentrated force and extreme heat. Lola's fingers closed around something vital inside the creature's body and crushed it with casual efficiency. The jade turtle collapsed without even managing a final sound, its consciousness extinguished before pain could fully register. Lola withdrew her hand from the smoking hole in its shell, already turning her attention toward the next target. In mere seconds, Lola had eliminated the jade turtle. The rainbow parrot tried to flee skyward, using its natural aerial advantage to escape this overwhelming demon. But Lola's fire wings carried her upward with velocity that made the bird's desperate flight look pathetic. She caught the parrot mid-escape, her hands closing around its colorful body with gentle precision that contrasted sharply with the violence she had just displayed. "You were entertaining with your mockery earlier," Lola observed as the parrot struggled futilely in her grip. "But entertainment value doesn't purchase mercy." The flames from her hands intensified gradually, cooking the parrot from the outside in with controlled application of heat. The bird's screams echoed across the clearing for several seconds before finally falling silent as its consciousness surrendered to the overwhelming pain. Lola then eliminated the rainbow parrot guardian. Only the ethereal cat remained, and the creature had already begun its desperate attempt to flee. The cat phased into its translucent state and bolted toward the forest edge with every ounce of speed its Grandmaster capabilities could generate. But Lola's transformed state had amplified her perception along with everything else. She could track the cat's movements even while phased. Her spiritual sight enhanced to levels that penetrated through spatial manipulation and invisibility techniques. "Naughty kitty," Lola called out with dark amusement, her wings propelling her forward in pursuit. "I warned you what would happen if you tried to run." She caught the fleeing cat within seconds, her hand closing around the creature's neck mid-phase with force that dragged it back into solid form. The cat materialized fully, unable to maintain its defensive technique while being physically restrained by someone operating at Lola's current power level. "Please!" the cat gasped, genuine terror overwhelming its earlier aloof pride. "I surrender. I'll serve you, provide information, anything you want. Just let me live." Lola paused, considering the pleading creature with calculating eyes. The cat was cute and everything, with good potential and strength to survive in this forest. It had intelligence and capabilities that could prove useful if properly controlled and motivated. "A demonic contract," Lola decided aloud. "Bind yourself to my service through blood oath, and I'll allow you to survive. Refuse, and you die here like your companions." The ethereal cat didn't hesitate even a fraction of a second. "I accept. I'll sign whatever contract you require." Lola conjured flames that formed intricate patterns in the air between them, creating a magical contract written in fire that detailed the terms of absolute servitude. The cat would serve Lola faithfully, provide honest information when requested, and fight at her command without hesitation or betrayal. In exchange, it would be allowed to live and potentially benefit from the power and resources that came with serving such a formidable master. The cat pressed its paw against the flaming contract, wincing as the magic burned the oath directly into its soul. The binding took effect immediately, creating a connection between them that would enforce the contract's terms through supernatural compulsion. "Welcome to my service," Lola said with satisfaction, releasing the cat from her grip. "Your first task is to remain here and ensure none of the surviving master-rank beasts interfere with my companion's acquisition of the teardrop fruit." The cat nodded frantically, grateful beyond measure to have survived when all its fellow guardians had perished. It took up a defensive position around Noah, its newfound loyalty ensuring it would fulfill its assigned duty without question. Lola's fire wings remained manifested as she surveyed the battlefield, satisfied with the outcome of the confrontation. 3 Grandmaster Guardians eliminated, 1 bound to service, and the path to the teardrop completely clear for Noah to claim their prize.